and it was very heroic. And man, I cry on almost every single one of those stories, especially the ones on YouTube, because these old men who fought in Korea will be there, and it's just like that Band of Brothers thing when he's like, "Do it, Taylor." The whole thing.
My grandson asked me, "Grandpa, were you a hero in the war?" Grandpa said no. But I served in a company of heroes. And then it plays the sad music, and he's just this old man, and he'd had all these remarkable achievements, and he's so humbled by the sacrifice of his men.
Just you saying that brought back those memories, and I teared up. If you'd done it another time back to back, I'd have cried. I'll tell you what else I've been watching. Those submarine World War II animation videos. I cried today. I cried at one of them today. Let me tell you.
A submarine video?
Yeah. So this one wasn't specifically submarines, but it was
so deep and alone.
Hear me out. There's cold and dark down there.
Other ships to keep them company.
Yeah. Just recycled farts and the guy next to you. We're on a steel can down here. No, this one wasn't specifically submarines. It was the tale of a British boat. So essentially, it was early World War One, or I think one. And the situation was that a German vessel had gotten into the Atlantic unseen by the Royal Navy, and there was a huge merchant fleet that was heading back toward England with 37, I believe, vessels. And they're all civilians. It's a merchant fleet. They're goods, fuel, stuff like that. But, not military men, not armed vessels, 37 of them. And amongst them, as sort of a ceremonial or like a token protector, is this boat that used to be a cruise liner. It used to be take the trip to fucking Australia and back with civilians on a cruise liner, and they had strapped 6-inch guns onto it. Okay, they strapped like multiple 6-inch guns, some of them from the 1800s. And this is the defender of this of these boats. Well, they spot this gigantic battleship from German battleship off in the distance. This thing has multiple like 11 or 12-inch guns. It outranges them by like kilometers, and so they flash the lights. Identify yourself to the Germans. Germans don't speak English flashy flash, so they reply back with the same thing. You identify yourself, and the English are like, aha, we know this German ruse. Get them. So they instantly make the decision what has to be done. The fleet has to scatter. They have to throw up a smoke screen. And the cruise liner with its 6-inch guns from the 1800s has to steam as fast as it can headlong into the German battleship and hold it off as long as it can. And the battle does not go their way. Their guns are so outranged that they don't get to hit the Germans. Ship. The Germans keep their distance and slowly kill the Englishmen, even when the captain's arm is blown away and his leg is shredded. He refuses to stop commanding the vessel, and he says to keep shooting the guns at maximum elevation. We've got to distract them and let the fleet get away. And in the end, over 30 of the vessels made it because of their sacrifice. And I was getting all teared up.
That's an incredible sacrifice.
When I realized they weren't going. And the worst part was, it was like these were like merchant marines, like. They weren't. They didn't have military training per se. They had been part of the crew beforehand when it was a goddamn cruise liner.
Oh, so they
many of them were. They brought drinks to
people and snacks.
They got like the original crew manning many of the positions, and to a man.
People should know this story, man. That's unbelievable bravery on behalf of those people.
I felt so, but every one of these stories is kind of similar with like the heroics and the crazy stuff. I don't know how it's on YouTube and not on the History Channel. The History Channel is such a piece of shit for not having cool stuff
those
like that on there.
Cunts with their
it's so cheap to make.
It's like Sister Wives instead.
Yeah, that's
Oh,
what
all right, that's
TLC
different.
is. The Learning
needs nudity.
Channel. Remember the Learning Channel? And now
It used to
it's
be
my
surgeries.
My 1,000-pound sisters or whatever the
Just
fuck.
so for y'all young folks out there, there was a program on the Learning Channel, TLC, called Operation. You know what it was? It was 45-minute human operation procedures. I saw them like give somebody a cornea transplant, and like I definitely saw someone get their
Appendix removed.
Spacing. No, when you get neutered as a not neutered, but fixed as a man.
Vasectomy.
Thank you. I couldn't think of that word.
It's like you watched a man be castrated on the Learning Channel.
I couldn't get all
They
circumcised.
made him a eunuch.
It's like that Arab seems pretty Taliban, or that doctor seems pretty Taliban. Damn it,
Doctor la 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 la. No, they just had the operations there, and I remember sitting with my mother at like 7 p.m., 8 p.m. at night, watching them stitch some lady's fucking cervix up or something. Right? It was crazy.
Yeah. Did you ever see the breast implant ones where you could almost the nipple and like most of the good boob area was blurred out, but like seeing that as like a 13-year-old on TLC was like,
hey dude, check out Channel 5. There's a breast exam on.
Yeah. There was this one. There was this
Taylor
one show.
that movie. I bet he doesn't.
I don't know.
You don't get that reference. You piece of shit. Woody gets the reference.
It was a good reference, Taylor.
You are when Woody has the reference and gets the fucking friendly chuckle for me, and you're left in the cold. Go watch Office Space. Go watch it.
Oh, I've seen Office Space. I must have just missed the joke.
You need better recall.
You need better recall.
I'm gonna need you to get some Adderall. All right, I'm all drugged up over here, and I'm getting these references.
You're just snap. Dude, I'm gonna get on Adderall.
All I know is just remember Pearl Harbor. Never forget that. That I say that dealing with all of them.
I'll forget 9/11 long before I forget Pearl Harbor.
I'm not. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Because 9/11 was just that we got most of those guys. You know that did the 9/11. Like
we got all of them. They.
I thought you were talking about Wall Street.
No,
like I don't think we got any of those guys that caused 9/11.
No,
they all died in the.
We found the true culprits' passports in the rubble. We got them. Man, sometimes you get lucky.
Depending on what version you believe, we got them all. Whereas, like, it never sat right with me in history class when they got to the part about the Japanese emperor just getting away scot-free and getting to remain the emperor. I mean, I guess he lost a lot of.
He wasn't the real emperor. He was just a figurehead.
He got to live in his palace.
Yeah, like as a figurehead, though. He wasn't like.
Who else was going to live there?
Yeah, Kyle,
you should have drug him out of there and hung him.
He only got the money and prestige. He was no longer in charge.
We could have done what MacArthur. It was MacArthur, right? That they put in charge of Japan. Like they basically said, "All right, you run Japan," and he was like, "Wait, what?" Well, I was just running the whole Pacific War effort, so okay. So he's in charge of Japan now, and it was literally up to him. Should we drag the emperor out of there? Fucking him in the street? Like he could have made that call, but instead they decided to let them keep their figurehead and like let him like live out the rest of his fucking days. I don't think he died until like color TV and shit. Like he got to live to the good times.
Yeah, he's a Japanese emperor. They live hundreds of years.
Fuck.
Like they're healthy people. And if you're trying to keep the Japanese happy about it, you got to let them, because they're all about honoru and like all of that shit. And so you have to give them something to be proud of afterward. Like, hey, you still have.
Did you hear about all the Japanese women that the Japanese willingly enslaved to allow our sailors to fuck? Because they just thought that was what they needed to do. Because when they went somewhere, like when they were in China and Indonesian places and they take over and occupy, they would like just make all the women their concubines and sort of like make a pleasure squad. Like when we took over, they were like, oh, quick, let's line up their pleasure squad. Either we make a pleasure squad or they'll make one for us. You know how war is. So they just like organized a huge amount of women. They were like 15 to like 20 to be in pleasure houses to like support the war. Do your duty. Be a whore for Japan. The Americans are here. Otherwise, you know what they'll do. They'll just start everybody because that's how war is. It was just another one of those times where they thought we were as awful as they were. It's the Japanese were so evil that they're like something out of a storybook. They're like the World War II Japanese, because they couldn't comprehend human decency. They killed themselves and fought to the last man because they thought that Marines were recruited from mental hospitals, that they were literally bloodthirsty men with sharpened teeth. They thought U.S. Marines were monster men who would torture them. So they're jumping off cliffs and drowning themselves rather than just giving up and taking the hot meal they would have gotten. Just because that's what they did as well. You know, they would torture us to death. They didn't take fucking prisoners. Did you see their prison camps where they would be lopping people's heads off with katanas and starving those guys to death? Not to mention all those experiments where they would vivisect people and expose people to botulism, smallpox, any number of like gas experiments, boiling people and just exposing them to anything you can imagine that's awful to be exposed to.
For research.
Like Lizzo?
Exactly.
Expose them to Lizzo.
Yeah, but now Japan is like the last bastion of like awesome against.
They're our missile island now. We need them.
The woke censors, right? Like they put tits in their video games and they don't care about.
They censor their porn, Dick.
I don't like that. I don't like that, Woody. But they do have whores in Japan.
Do they? That's
balance
progressive.
it out.
Wait,
yeah, dude, they have like a
legal?
6-block area. It's not legal, but they have like a 6-block area in Osaka where they have like these whores stood up on. I mean,
Shit, we have illegal whores. That's
Yeah.
Whores are legal in Australia. Prostitution's legal in Australia. Do you know that?
Yeah, but you have to fuck an Australian.
Australians are like fucking Floridians.
No. They
islands.
come from criminal stock, and I'll hear nothing more of it.
My dream come true would be to
They're
drag
not like
the whole
us.
continent of Australia up and like butt it up against Florida. Like they would just get along so fucking well.
They would have such a grand old time. Australia and Florida. There's probably about as many people living in Florida as Australia, right?
Yeah, probably same.
They could probably be. They could be such good friends.
So I wanted to rebut someone. Shiz linked me to some guy on the subreddit.
I didn't even see this. I'm really proud that like shit on the subreddit happens now and I don't catch it. But carry on.
I didn't catch it either. Shiz linked me to this. He asked me what I thought about it. He's like, what do you think of this? So, I guess it was last week or the week before we were discussing what would happen if you dropped an Abrams tank, a modern day Abrams tank, into World War II. What could it do to the Third Reich? And first of all, the scenario that I envision, and the one I think that we settled on, was that you had unlimited ammo, because these things only carry 42 rounds. And that's not going to really get anything done. 42 targets is nothing in the grand scale of things, especially World War II. I think you get to pick the time of the war you get dropped into as well, and potentially where.
No. There was definitely behind enemy lines. Was part of the question.
Okay.
What's the kind of tank we're using? I need to look this up so I know
Abrams.
what we're talking about.
Yeah, the Abrams tank. ABRAM. So I found a little bit of information, and I wanted to like read through this. What I've got here, got a prepared statement, if you will. So this refutes a few of the things that this guy had to say. So the anti-tank specialist weapon of the day for the Germans was the 88 millimeter. The PAK-43 was the anti-tank specialized version of the 88. It looks like Wikipedia lists that the PAK-43's armor penetration at 100 meters, which is effectively point-blank range, is 202 millimeters. The M1 Abrams frontal armor equivalence, rough, which means a very rough estimate, against kinetic penetration is about 940 to 960 millimeters. But that's the older version. The new ones have depleted uranium armor upgrades. Basically,
That sounds so cool.
Yeah.
Basically, the added protection from the depleted uranium armor is believed to be equivalent to 24 inches, that's 610 millimeters, of RHA, that's rolled homogeneous armor plate. So you're looking at a penetrator capable of what? Cracking 202 millimeters, striking 1,560 millimeters of equivalent armor. So if you hit the same spot with the biggest fucking gun you've got about 3 or 4 times in a row, you got it. But the problem is the M1 Abrams tank has thermal night vision. It can see through those hedgerows that are all in France and Germany, and it can see your guns through them. It can look through walls and find the bad guys. It shoots from a farther effective range than anything you have while driving 40 miles a fucking hour. Your tanks have to stop to even shoot accurately. This tank will never miss a target, regardless of the range or of its movement or of the target's movement. That means that the Abrams can be hauling ass over hills beyond your effective range, and you can be hauling ass in the other fucking way or strafing, whatever you want to do, and it'll still hit you 99% of the time, just because of the targeting systems. Some people brought up the tank maintenance, and that is an issue. That they do have a breakdown issue, so that could happen. That the tank could actually break down. But let's imagine that you get some Americans to support your tank with some infantry and some Shermans and maybe some aircraft. Then you're pretty much unstoppable because you got engineers and you got fuel behind you, and the tank can run the fuel of the day because those turbine engines will run anything, kerosene, diesel, lighter fluid, whatever you pour in them. I think I got something else here. Oh, as far as the it goes on to say the M1's durability is almost irrelevant anyway because it's not likely to get hit much in the first place. The thermal sensors, fire controls, crew conditioning, and training of modern crews mean that detecting enemies and landing the first round will happen faster and from a longer range than the enemy has any practical hope of retaliating at. A World War II tank can have difficulty just hitting a moving target at all at moderate range, but a well-trained Abrams crew is accuracy is near 100%. Yeah, I already went through that. Anything that gets hit is doomed. The M1's kinetic penetrator will encounter so little resistance from enemy armor that it may not be able to get reliably deadly after armor effects. It will simply punch clean through and out the other side of a German tank. That means you can get collaterals.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
With tanks.
So the issue then becomes if they can hit it with artillery, or they can booby trap it, or they can use an aircraft bomb rigged with some sort of a mine, something like that. That would disable the tracks for sure. But the scenario doesn't involve you saying, "Hey, Germans, we have a super tank. Get ready." No, you don't do that. You fucking attack at 45 miles per hour.
Why would you have a German accent in this scenario?
So that they could understand you, wouldn't it?
Okay, my bad. All right, good point.
My point is, are you going to roll into Berlin and take out Hitler? No, you can't do that because they've got those Panzerschreck things, those little bazooka things, and well, it really depends on the year. There's just too many of them to. Your barrel would probably eventually lose its rifling, I would imagine. You just kill so many of them. The trick wouldn't be. I think some people imagine the M1 like barreling in, like to a mass of enemies where it becomes surrounded and enveloped by smaller tanks and artillery pounding it and like men charging it. But you would never put it in that scenario. It would be behind like a group of infantry and other tanks supported by aircraft, and it would be firing these laser beams, destroying everything that it could see from beyond their range. Nothing would get near it ever. You wouldn't.
How fast can it shoot? Do you know?
How many? I don't know. It's like a round a minute, probably, maybe 2 or 3. I should probably check that. I honestly don't know.
Huh.
Find out.
That just seems too slow to do enough damage from just one thing, though. Like eventually, it would just be overwhelmed. And I think it would be overwhelmed pretty quickly.
They have to. Let's see, rate of fire.
See, and use the front as your, like, how hard you'd have to be shot. But what if they hit you in the tread? They could probably break a tread.
Yeah.
Yeah, they'd have to hit you in the treads.
Like, there's too many ways for it to go wrong.
Like I'm saying, you would have the thing supported. You wouldn't go in on your own. You get the World War II era guys to come with you. I don't think if you went in there on your own, eventually someone would shoot your treads, right? They disable you. And then they drop aircraft bombs on you. But it's a hard shot. It really is. And you're mostly staying beyond their effective range. And if you're supported by troops, then that's not going to happen. I think if you're supported by troops, it can do it.
The scenario was, 50 cal unlimited bullets against Roman, what were they called? I have Colosseums in my head.
Like a couple of Roman legions.
Legions, yeah. That was one scenario. And the other scenario was a tank World War II behind enemy lines. And Kyle felt like the World War II one was much, much better.
Yeah.
In both scenarios, you're so outnumbered that they'd eventually get you unless you had a team on your side.
They can't catch you. You could run the other way and fire out your ass the whole time. Like they literally aren't as fast as you are.
Good.
It really is.
They are as fast as you. They're just not in tanks, right? They would need planes, bombers, things like that.
It's true.
Or even just regular Humvees or whatever the equivalent of that was.
Yeah.
Like this thing only goes 45.
The point is you need a team.
So it's not like some...
In either scenario, like you could do massive amounts of damage with a sniper rifle. These guys don't have guns. They brought swords to a gunfight.
I disagree with that one entirely. I think you can do very little damage.
No way.
I don't think... what's the starting distance? What like
no.
Visual
Too many
range.
people. There's
Give me
no
the scenario.
way. It would be dead way before you think.
I see them coming over the horizon. I'm on the mountaintop sniping until they get to me.
How far away are they?
I picture the movie 300, right? Like they're at the bottom of the pass. I'm at the top, and they have like a lot of mountain climbing to do to get to me. And I'm just popping them off. And by the way, there's a psychological effect here. They're watching a significant amount of their friends die.
I don't think it'd be significant at all. What's the range? That's the thing. Like, how far away are they? Are they 1,000 yards?
600 yards of cliff.
Straight up?
Almost.
So you're shooting straight down?
Roughly. I've got a good military advantage. Why aren't they shooting arrows at me?
Yeah.
I suppose, you know what? Maybe that's the thing. Maybe a sea of arrows comes raining down, and now I'm ineffective.
Ballistas. I mean, it's the Roman Legion. They're not dumb. They were they took over most of the world. My thing is this. They, from what I know about the Roman Legion, depending on the era, they didn't care too much about their manpower. If they needed 5 or 10,000 people to die to conquer an area, it just happened. So they wouldn't retreat, I don't think. I think they would just be like charge full ahead, and it would end up becoming how long does it take a man to get from where they are to where Woody is, and that's how much time you have to live. And then if that's an hour, how many rounds per minute can you fire, and then do the math. That's how many you'll get before they hack you up.
If it's an hour, I
don't think Romans did that. I think they really, like, their soldiers were well paid, well trained. I think the people that they just forced out the front were those like Germanic tribesmen that they kind of captured and conscripted.
Yeah,
so
but you gotta capture them first.
Well, yeah.
Somebody's got to be capturing those Germanic tribesmen.
Somebody's got to.
You guys,
it won't fit on your head.
You guys didn't even talk about how much you liked my new hat.
I love your hat.
I love you to please show your hat.
Yeah, I love the deals that it comes along with.
My man, get that far away in the last 10 minutes.
Taylor's been getting free drinks at Starbucks all week.
Please put it full screen.
You guys don't like my new hat?
I love your new hat. You're gonna get discounts at AutoZone with that.
I wear this to get discounts at local
Subway
restaurants.
They gave him a footlong for the price of a 6-inch while wearing that.
They call me the Benjamin Button GI because I was there. I was the oldest fighter in the war back in the day, and now I'm the youngest. And people always saying I'm stealing valor. And then,
but it's my valor.
I was really hoping you were a time traveler. Like you went back, fought the Nazis, and then came back to the future, and now you're just going about your life.
I had to go help, bro. Drawn to defend my country.
Would some of the fans do a good job of photoshopping Taylor on like the beach at Iwo Jima planting the flag or something? Not, some stuff like that. He was in the Pacific Theater. Okay, that's all you need to know. He killed 50 men, and they were all Japs. And if you could, I would like that. If you could just be in the background.
We need some pictures to prove it, guys.
Semper Fi, but I don't know about 50. I'm not like Cotton Hill. I'm not quite a hero like him.
No, you kept your
still got your shins. Yeah, you
and
still got your shins.
I still got my shins.
A time traveling hero such as yourself should be celebrated.
Yeah, dude, I just got so fucking baked last week that like I ordered the World War II veteran. Like in my head, I was sitting there playing Magic. I think it may have like been after a PKA last week where I was like cracking up to myself about how funny buying a World War II veteran hat was. And then like forget about it because I was baked out of my mind. And then 2 days later, it just arrives. And I'm like, this is wildly inappropriate.
And hilarious.
And funny though, and funny.
Yeah,
because like they're too old. I could beat up any World War II veteran.
You know what I think
Yeah.
would be
Yeah, anybody's
Equally-
gonna gripe about it.
equally ironic, and I think a little less offensive, is getting a kid a world's best dad shirt or something like that, like a 13, 14-year-old kid, or world's best mom. That's even funnier to me.
That's gonna get a lot of glances.
World's greatest mom on a 13-year-old.
Everywhere she goes.
Yeah.
What the fuck, man? Imagine taking your kid out with that shirt on. Though. They're gonna be looking at you.
Yeah.
And especially if it's one of those big families where you've got a 12-year-old and a toddler.
Yeah.
Like you can take them out together.
Right.
Oh,
Grandma's
those are the kind of YouTube videos I want to see.
I tried to find a Civil War veteran hat first,
Well,
but
those
they
don't
do not
exist.
sell those.
No, they don't.
Not even as a
But it's a
novelty.
funny idea to sell Civil War veteran hats
It
for
is.
old people. I mean, my dad's a bodybuilder. He's got a
for
shirt.
anyone. It's a joke that all can enjoy.
That's true.
We take we take the hard and intense sacrifice of the generations that came before, and we make it chintzy.
We wear it on our shoulders.
Yeah,
We stick with the flag in the ground and say, "Look what we did."
yeah.
I mean, we're American. I mean, we won. You know what I'm saying?
We did
Wouldn't we
win.
still
We
be
did
saying
win the
that if the
Civil
Civil
War.
War went the other way? Wouldn't we still be saying we're American? We won. Never
There's
mind.
that's the
No.
best thing about a civil war is you can't lose.
Not really.
Like whatever
way,
side wins
America
is going to
wins.
come out and be like the righteous side won.
Would they still be the American?
It was the Confederacy, I guess.
Yeah, we were happy
Confederacy,
being the
yeah.
Confederacy, I think. Damn.
Man.
No, if they would have won though, they just would have taken America and been like,
Confederate
yeah, we're
States of
America.
America.
No, I don't think they were
Print a
fighting
bunch-
to conquer.
I don't think that was the plan.
Bunch of new money.
Yeah, see, you're breaking up because your argument
No,
was
I don't know
flawed.
anything about this. I believe.
Yeah.
I didn't know I was arguing.
If you had a better argument, then your internet would work.
That's what we're doing here, goddammit.
So, did anybody else see the trailer for Dunkirk, the
Yeah.
Christopher Nolan World War II movie that's coming out soonish?
I did. I think that's.
I was left disappointed and underwhelmed and had a very strong meh. You picked the wrong World War II story to make a movie about kind of feeling afterwards. So I don't want to offend any Brits or Frenchmen right now, but I think the correct history of the event was that France is capitulating. Hitler's troops are coming in. There's really no more centralized French command. It's just a few French generals taking what troops are under their command and trying to hold off the Germans. Meanwhile, 500,000 British are trying to get back home because they see that their invasion isn't going to work and they got to regroup because the Blitzkrieg is fucking coming their way. There's 500,000 men on this beach and they just get picked off for days like fish in a barrel from aircraft and stuff. It's a real downer of a movie about the Allies losing early in the war and losing badly. I don't want to see that. And maybe that's very nationalist of me, and I should be okay with that. But
It's like if the
let's
Russians
watch the
made a
Marines on Wake Island holding out into the last man. Let's watch that one. That'd be much more fun and inspirational and a better movie. I love Nolan. I love World War II movies, but these people who are like, this is our generation Saving Private Ryan, you're a dumbass.
Well, yeah,
This
Saving
is-
Private Ryan is one of my all-time favorite movies, certainly war movies, and I have high hopes for Dunkirk because I do,
Same.
like you, I believe in Christopher Nolan. I think he's as a great filmmaker. Part of me thinks it was just a bad trailer. Like, part of me thinks that it was just not a very good trailer, and
Call
I'm
of
waiting for
Duty
the second
syndrome.
one. Yeah, but usually his trailers are knockout. Usually his trailers excite the shit
Interstellar
out.
trailer blew me away. I was
Yes.
like, fuck, I don't care where I've got to go. I'm going to watch that shit in 70 millimeter, and I did. And this time around again, he's shooting in 35 millimeter and 70 millimeter. So I will of course watch this thing on a 70 millimeter projector. But man, I got low hopes going into it. I feel like it's going to be a real downer. Like one of the scenes is an American like taking off his gear and walking into the waves to kill himself because they're in such a terrible situation. It's like, Jesus Christ, you
Is
couldn't
that
at
what
least
he's doing?
Yeah.
That was a British soldier, wasn't it?
Either way.
Allied.
Sure, it would
I
have
don't
been a British soldier. Yeah.
I thought he was just de-stressing. Like, you know
Killing
what?
himself.
I know everything's crazy, but I'm going for a little swim right now. Gotta get my
yeah.
head right. That's what I thought was happening.
Kyle, let Woody have his innocent delusions. We'll let him believe that.
I'm like,
He's not hurting anybody.
It is a
Look at
good
that.
time for a swim. I'd have done the same.
Woody's like, I forgot his board. That's a good surf right there. Maybe the others are maybe it's gonna be like a beach party, and they're all gonna have a good time. Barbecue.
Woody's gonna lose the
Woody
team.
would be screaming from the beach. You've got your boots on.
Yeah, I didn't know why he had his clothes on. I was like, well, all right. I guess it's kind of badass to go swimming in
your fatigues.
Commander, like, Private Stevens has been underwater for a long time, and he has to be like, Private Stevens isn't coming back. Christ. We all...
that guy's walking to his death because of the hopeless situation that they're facing.
He's going to leave the theater. He's going to have seen a completely different movie than us. He's going to leave the theater going, that would be the first story. Yeah, they all went swimming. It was a nice day on a beach, and we're like, wow, okay, Woody.
It's Woody Vision. You like it in here. It's nice.
Right? Some guy on Reddit said that he and his girlfriend watched Nightcrawler, and to this day, she still thinks it was an X-Men movie. Because Nightcrawler is an X-Men character. He's like, you didn't notice that he was a psychopathic, journalist, just creating his own crime. You thought he was an X-Men?
He never teleported in.
Yeah.
He actually bought a car because he was having being able to teleport would have made that movie really boring because he would have gotten to every scene immediately and been like, I got the clip and I'm out.
The whole movie was about a guy who solved the transportation problem better than his peers.
Actually, I'm just going to teleport into the bank and steal the money that I need.
I don't think this camera at all. I respected his hustle though, and I bet Woody did too. Like early on when he's so fucking broke that it hurts, and he's got this hustle and confidence about him that's like, yeah, I'm in a hole. That's why I'm digging myself out. That's what I'm doing. And he was so forward thinking, despite the fact that he's a sociopath and he's willing to kill and do anything. Really, everyone else, their lives have zero value to this guy. It's all about him. I really had a lot of admiration, though, for his, he was really in a hole there at the beginning. He didn't have anywhere to live. He's just completely broke. But he still was it was like a fake it till you make it kind of mentality with this psychopath.
Gotta admire the hustle, undoubtedly.
I really liked that movie. To say a final thing on Dunkirk, I think the reason that people, it's hard to make a World War II movie because everybody immediately thinks to, I'm maybe not hard by Samantha. I don't know. I was thinking that it's hard because it's compared. You immediately compare it to things like Band of Brothers, Saving Private Ryan, and it is really, really hard to hold up to Saving Private Ryan or Band of Brothers.
You got some shoes to live up to, so you got to try a little harder.
Generation Kill.
I've seen that.
I saw that. Pretty good.
That is very good.
Not as good as Band of Brothers, but it was still.
I feel like it's a different problem. It's a different war, right? You've got a war where people, are worried about career advancement. You've got a war where people are worried about looking good, staying out of trouble, things like that. And they covered it amazingly. I talked to people who've been into war, modern war, and they're like, that was the most accurate representation I've seen of modern war ever.
I would like to see a story about, I don't know, maybe Midway, but more important, more cooler would be like an Audie Murphy story, like one of the Medal of Honor recipients from the war. Somebody who did something crazy, who killed a bunch of Germans or something, took out a machine gun nest.
A naval battle, right?
Yeah. That's when we sent everything we fucking had and snuck it in and just crushed the Japanese. But I watched a really interesting video about the economic. I linked to you guys. I doubt any of you looked at it because it was really boring and like minutia. But it broke down the economics of World War II and just how crazy our economy was at the time. He outlines it based on all kinds of statistics, whether it's automobile production or the modernization of American factories, the way that our managerial system at the time was first class in the world. We had the best managers, the best workers, the best machinery, everything. But there was so much slack in our workforce. It was really ready to go. We had a lot more infrastructure than we had need for, and
we had more hammers.
Much more hammers. It was and that's so what they broke hammers down. It's hard to like figure out how many hammers a country has.
This is a civilization reference if people aren't getting it.
Yeah. But this actually broke down like look how many hammers the United States had. And they broke it down. And by the end of the war, he points out, he's like, at the end of the war, when the Soviets, the Brits, the Japanese are all either plateauing in their production capabilities for making war or declining due to infrastructure losses or a lack of material supply, coal, rubber, all that stuff, we're just getting warmed up. Now we're in go mode at the end of the war. And that's why I always say, when I look at that, when I think about the end of World War II and the last days of it, we should have kept on going. We should have kept on going. The whole fucking globe was crippled, except for us. We were in the fucking catbird seat, baby. We had nukes, Nobody else had one. We had the biggest fleet of boats that's ever been assembled. Nobody else had any boats left because we sunk them all. We had all these nations under our foot signing these agreements that were much greater in our benefit. We should have went ahead and knocked Stalin the fuck off and given his shit to Germany if we wanted to. Like, just, we don't have to keep it. Like, I'm not talking about creating an empire. Just crush the Russians, get rid of the Soviets, and give their shit to break the Soviet Union apart and make them all independent nations, which is what happened in the 80s anyway.
You think they had a talk about that?
They did
like,
have
right
a talk about that.
The end, when they're like, "Hey,
the
do you
generals
think
wanted
maybe
that.
we could just conquer the world on the way?
No,
Because
we
we defeated every major army on the way here."
I can't think of the general who maybe was one of the major American generals was like "We're
MacArthur.
here." All MacArthur is who I had in my head, but I wasn't sure. We've got all of our shit here, boss. Look, all of our might and firepower. Our big punch is cocked and ready, and we're looking down at everyone else on the fucking globe. Let's just get rid of the Soviets. We totally could have done it. Absolutely. And I mean, if we wanted to, we could have conquered South America while we were at it. It's amazing to look at the military making power and the situation the United States of America was in right then in like 1945, 1946. It's outstandingly. It's amazing. It's really cool stuff. I like reading up on that. But just between the U.S. and Japan, it wasn't even close. They were never a threat. And what I was getting at with that whole discussion there was that if we had lost Midway, this guy broke down why it didn't fucking matter, because we would replace all of our losses and have a bigger fleet than the Japanese within a year and a half or something like that. And the worst, and he didn't even think we'd lose Hawaii in that scenario. So, I don't know. World War II.
It looks like it
is interesting.
The British wanted to keep going too.
Yeah.
There's something called Operation Unthinkable that Churchill asked to have outlined. I'm just reading about it. It's new to me. And they eventually decided it was fanciful and just sort of abandoned it. But apparently Churchill was talking about going into Russia and just taking over the world, I guess.
It's a very 1940s way to dismiss world conquest. Oh, that's a bit fanciful, don't you think?
Right?
I mean,
I think we're on a little island the size of Louisiana.
They were so crippled and war weary at the time. They had lost.
We were
15
war weary
times.
too.
The populace was, but it was a mental thing more than an actual thing. Like, they had lost millions and millions of men. We didn't. We'd lost hundreds of thousands. They had lost tens, like over 10 million or something like that, defending all of those cities, falling back and not holding their ground. Holding their ground to the last man. All that crazy shit that happened in Stalingrad.
The
Russians
like
lost
Patton
20.
wanted to keep going.
Russians lost 20 million men, I think, in World War II. Like, it was such a bad problem in Russia that for years, decades afterward, there were just huge numbers of single women because there literally weren't enough men in the generation because so many died.
We could have immediately made a deal with the Germans and been like, you know what? Those Russians have been awfully cruel to you, raping and murdering as they took back your land and exacting their revenge upon you. Let's outline a peace agreement. Take everything you got, add it to what we got, and let's head north. Let's just go back in there and see if we can fix it this time.
That's just the worst tactical move I can imagine. Is going right after the war, going, "Hey, American public, you know those people we just fought? Yeah, fuck the Nazis. No, they're cool. Trust me, no, they're good. We're actually fighting the Russians now.
We're fighting fascism, though, right? We're fighting fascism, and once we once we'd put fascism down, then communism was the problem, and we should have went ahead and put communism down. If we'd done that, the world would be in a whole different place. We could have taken it. If you look at the numbers, the amount of troops, material, and the technological advancements, because we kept improving our planes, like. The Japan, you always hear about the Japanese Zero fighter plane, right? Because they didn't make any new fighter planes during the war.
They never got to the one.
They never got to the one. We got to 3 or 4. We kept innovating.
Part of the reason why the kamikaze, like they turned their planes into weapons, like physical weapons, was because they didn't do anything else. Like they didn't do bombing very well, right? Like they didn't do that part of it very well. So. Yeah, I mean, I like to think about history and just think about what could have been. Like, a lot of historians agree that, like, had Hitler just not attacked Russia, had he just focused on one front and he could have taken over all of Europe and parts of Africa and all sorts of other places, right?
I've heard that said, but that ignores the American hammer advantage to go back to Civ talk. I
think you still have to not also get us instigated, right? Because we were pretty fat, dumb, and happy until Pearl Harbor happened.
That was probably a really awkward phone call between Hirohito and Hitler. Why did you bring the Americans into it? We are already struggling so much just in France.
I could see Japan writing over Skype to Hitler.
Had Hitler just focused on Scandinavia, Europe, parts of Africa, I think he would have done a lot better. Tactically speaking.
How the bomb button and the simulation button look the same?
I think the eventuality of that circumstance of Hitler never messing with the Soviets is that at the end of the war, he gets to keep a lot of what he took. He gives a lot of it back. Maybe France gets liberated, of course. But maybe he keeps Poland. He's going to keep a lot of stuff. That would have been the piece. He'd have kept a big chunk of everything he'd taken. That would have been the piece that would have been made, because there wouldn't. I find it interesting that America was okay with a conditional surrender from Japan. They said it was an unconditional surrender, but we didn't get Hirohito. He was the guy that fucking made the decision to bomb Pearl Harbor. We didn't get his ass. We hunted Hitler down until he had to blow his brains out. Mussolini got hung and pissed on in the streets. Hirohito lived out the rest of his life as the emperor of fucking Japan. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think there was also a part of condolence, whoops, we kind of really fucked over Japan in a way that maybe we shouldn't have. There's
another aspect. I think to me the big thing was Japan's really hard to take, right? You have to do beach, you have to take over beach after beach after beach where they're reinforced, they're sitting there behind hills or bunkers or whatever, and we're running across the sand. And you have to do that again and again and again. We're we're going to lose so many people. It's going to be so hard to take island after island.
The estimates were 1 million men, 1 million American casualties to take the home island of Japan. But I don't think you need that. Our air power was so good. We could have bombed them and kept bombing them and made a couple more nukes if we wanted to. We could have had another nuke in 8 months. We could have destroyed Tokyo. We could have burned every city they had. We could have exterminated them. I would have been, and I'm still for that.
Remember that would have been
to this date, 75 years. I don't forget.
Yeah.
That clip we reference sometimes, are we the baddies?
Yeah.
That picture I just linked is literally Benito Mussolini's headquarters in Italy during World War II. That you cannot have that be your headquarter building and walk in every morning with your Starbucks being time to improve reality for all of my Italian brothers. No, you walk into that into your scary CCCCCCC building written on there. It's it's
ISIS upside down.
The people who worked at that cafe to the left, do you think they ever walked out and served somebody their fucking, Italian whatever the hell coffee and went so glad Benito's here helping Italy? No, they're probably God, this guy's a fucking asshole. He has a picture of his own angry face on the outside.
Would it be cappuccino?
Glad Mussolini watches over us all.
No, he just looks over
that
us
looks
all.
like the fucking floating head from Zardoz or something like that.
Yeah, but Mussolini, he was killed by his own people. He and his mistress, the picture of them. Yeah.
That's the other thing that you're making a really good point too about just history. It's even in Nazi Germany, not all Germans were Nazis, right?
Very small percentage.
Right. It was a party that became the populist party and took over power. And same thing in Japan. Not all Japanese people were imperialist savages, right?
I disagree with that. The Japanese were a different case, and the Japanese are much more evil than the Nazis, and they deserved a worse fate. The Nazis were fascists, and the whole thing with the Jews, it wasn't just the Jews. Maybe they killed 6 million Jews. They killed 6 more million of other people, where there were Slavs, mentally deficient people, homosexuals, you name it.
Believe me, I know the type of savagery that Imperial Japan, the military industrial.
What was that unit 731? Is that what it was? Yeah, the vivisection, which is dissecting human beings while they're still alive. All kinds of terrible.
Because they made this many memory cards look like a filing cabinet full of evidence.
And meanwhile, sit there and watch your videos. They just had to sit there and be like, I bet one guy was like, man, this is a sweet job.
We're gonna leave this guy alone.
These are
Come
good
on.
videos.
Is that a tank? No, and a lot of it was like the B-roll stuff. Like you would take a GoPro with a magnet on it, stick it on the barrel of a tank, turn it on, and let it roll for 3 hours.
Stupid question, Kyle. Have you ever been in a tank? And I ask because I can't tell the difference between a tank and all the things that look like tanks.
Yeah, I have. I think the Bradley, right?
Oh.
Or the Sherman. No, Sherman. The World War II like Sherman tank with might be a 37 millimeter cannon on it.
Hello my friends, it is FPSRussia again, and today we're going to play with a very nice tank here. But first things first, let's get something to eat.
I've been in one of those with the working cannon and shot the cannon and driven over a Jeep, and that was the time when it was like a collector's item. Like obviously these things are rare because they're World War II tanks, but this one's like dressy. Like the stars are painted right, the fenders on these things. You might think, oh, it's a tank. I bet it's tough. Well, the fenders are just like car fenders, the part that like sticks out on the edges. And the guy who owned it was this big bellied guy over there with overalls, arms crossed. I don't know what they told him to let me in this thing. You know, who knows what lies he'd been told, but because there was like a middleman between me and him anyway. And I'm filming with a reenacting crew. It's not just a guy. That's Mo. He drives it. It's like, no, that's fucking Gunnery Sergeant Pete Townsend of the 44th Brigade. And like, they're all wearing the exact shit. It looks like Fury. There's pictures of it, I'm sure, on my social media somewhere. It's like Fury. They're all in their gear with their helmets and everything. And I'm in that thing, and we're supposed to drive over the edge of this Jeep Grand Cherokee that I've procured for $800. And I want to crush the motherfucker, right? But they're like, slowly go up to it, push up onto it, and then back off. And I'm talking to homeboy that's driving it. I'm next to him. You know, he's got his gear on and everything. And I'm like, this is exactly how it would have been, you know? Rolling through the streets of some French town. Look how hard he hit this motherfucker. He hit it full fucking speed. He didn't slow down
ease onto it.
I hyped him up and he crushed it. You know, it's a tank, so like a couple miles per hour. Okay. In reality, like jogging speed maybe, but it's a tank, so it like and I don't know if you can tell from this angle, but that front fender thing there is fucked up on the other side. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, that's what am I holding there? Oh, I'm holding. See, I've got two rounds there. The one on my left is like a solid lead projectile, and the one on the right hand is my right hand. Your like camera left is like a shot shell, which turned out to be completely ineffective even at close range. Just nonsense.
What does that mean? Like it was a tank shot?
I think it was a round. Yeah. I think it was supposed to shoot a bunch of balls or something. But we shot it, and like I don't think we made contact with the target. We saw a little dust downrange where it like hit the ground a few spots, and it was like that would have scared some folks, wouldn't it?
Yeah. How many times did you shoot it?
I honestly don't remember. We probably had a dozen rounds or something like that. I'm sure. Those you could. They're just loading those.
What was it like to get the rounds? How did you procure them? Or did the guy?
Yeah.
bring?
So the guys who own tanks, artillery pieces, things like that still fire, they load their own ammunition. So they have enormous loading dies, kegs of powder, like out of like video games, you know, the exploding barrels. They've got those. And they'll make their own projectiles, form them out of liquid lead, and make their own bullets. Cause obviously you can't go, get those old rounds anymore. And it requires some special licensing. Like first you've got to have a tank, which is really just a road vehicle in the end. A lot of them have plates on them so you can drive them somewhere. We did that a couple times. But then getting the breech to be live, I think it requires a Type 10, which is very high level. You're able to manufacture destructive devices and make that breech live. And then you just need rounds for it. Like I said, that's kind of a small cannon. I think that's 37 millimeter, if I remember correctly. It's been a while. But I shot a tank destroyer one time, and that thing was like, the bullet was big. Like it wasn't like something you'd hold in your hand. It was like something you support with both hands like a goddamn child. It's like, this is the fucking bullet that goes in this fucking Hellcat tank destroyer thing. That thing was different.
That was like, was it open top?
That was also like it's called a tank destroyer, but to my eyes, it's like, what's the fucking difference? It's a tank. We're down in this thing with the, you're in it. That one was a lot cooler. That was a more modern piece, like maybe Korea or Vietnam. I'm just guessing. I don't know shit about tanks. That was when we nearly killed Jeremy, because Jeremy was hanging out the top of the tank recording, and I was shooting a plywood hut that we had put a trash bag full of tannerite in. I don't know how much. We just filled the trash bag, like a big, like black trash bag.
How did you shake it? Did you just shake it in the bag?
Wow.
Yeah. And then we like tied a knot in the top, tied a rope to that, held it in the center in the air inside of a plywood hut that was like 2x4s around the corners, begged the crowd to back up, and they refused. And so I got in that son of a bitch and like let her rip, and shit went everywhere. Pieces of 2x4s that like a tornado had like torn them asunder and made them into like lethal splinters that would just right past us. Like I'm down in a tank. I don't give a shit. I've warned everyone.
I'm not sure you wouldn't be liable. Like,
not my
hey
tank,
guys, I'm
not my
shooting
land.
toward you.
How many people were there? Like,
they didn't move. Not my
15,
fault.
20 at least. 15,
how
20
close were they? When
Probably
you're like
30 yards behind me. And like up on a ridge, like they were in the blast zone. Like the shit went up there to where they were. They refused. I begged and begged, and I'm like, I'm filming here. They like, we're on public land. This ain't my tank. Like, y'all need to leave. I'm about to blow this shit up. And they were like, let her in. You know,
it's pretty dope.
Usually tried to not have a fucking studio audience for things like that. But I think that the guy that owned the tank like brought all of his buddies to see the show.
What Russian tanks have you been in? The ones with the glowing?
I don't know what it's called. But it's I drove it through this guy's house in Texas. He wanted his house destroyed because he was building a bigger, fancier mansion, and he also owns the APC or whatever it is. It has a cannon, but it's not operational, or at least it was at the time. They hadn't gone through the paperwork and everything of making it fire. But the gauges in that thing were radium. I think the gimmick we did there was I drove through the house at like full speed, and then at one point I parked in the house, and then we were trying to blow the house down onto me, so we set charges all in the house and like blew the house down. Yeah, there you go.
Wow.
See, that's a good shot from the drone there. That's Richard Ryan's work. Richard was on the drone. Yeah, Richard Ryan's on the drone there.
Why is the explosion coming out of the roof like that?
Because we set the charges on the second floor.
Okay.
There's 3 charges on the second floor. Those charges are I don't know the exact mixture, but it's there's some plastic explosive and I think it's all plastic. It's mostly plastic explosive, but it's against water barrels, and it's hyper pressurizing that water and creating those jets that you're seeing blow everything out. So everywhere you see like a cloud of vapor, that's the water being used to send everything flying. It's a lot safer than the alternative, which would,
I didn't realize it was on a river when I saw the video.
Oh, that's a little bit.
Yeah.
It's a nice place.
There's a sick pool in the backyard that like overlooks that little valley, and that's his river. It flows into a big lake that he's got. The lake is full of like these giant inflatable obstacles to like ride your jet skis around.
That house was nice, wasn't it? Before you blew it up,
that was technically a mobile home. Like so they brought that in a module. That's a modular home. See, that is that's because Dale Earnhardt lived for a long time in what's called a modular home. They bring it in sections and stick it together, and because he wanted a nice place fast at one point when he got all that money, but they were destroying that to build a very legitimate mansion, I'm told.
Did you hear what happened in Germany today?
No, we didn't hear what happened in Germany.
A bomb from World War II went off and killed a guy.
No way. I thought you said Jeremy, not Germany.
Did you hear what went off in Germany today?
It was me.
Yeah, apparently this thing has been lying dormant since World War II, and it went off and killed a guy and caused all kinds of destruction. There's houses blown up and buildings messed up and all kinds of stuff. It was a big bomb.
Why was it near houses?
Into it, and apparently this happens pretty regularly in Germany. Like 20 people have died in the last since the war's been over of just random bombs going off.
Like idle bombs that fell out, bombers just laying around. They don't try to remove them.
I think it was undiscovered until yesterday.
That unlucky guy.
This leads into the topic that I've been holding since before the show. So in war, winners write the history, right? That much is land is determined. And because of that, everyone that's ever lost a war has been the bad guy, right? In the U.S. Civil War, the South, they were totally the slave masters. Germany, they were totally, they were killing Jews, Nazis, etc., etc. Nazi is a dirty word. In Italy, even Japan. Japan, I think if you look at it, had some, I think, honorable fighting tactics, right? The kamikaze thing was brave. If Japan ended up winning after Germany dropped off, people would be singing the songs of the brave acts and honorable way that they fought.
I disagree wholeheartedly.
I don't disagree. I think people would be singing like these brave warriors. They'd be heroes. There'd be plaques against the guys that kamikaze.
Kyle, they'd be heroes in Germany.
You might disagree, Kyle, with the fact with the idea of the songs, but if Japan won, no, you might disagree that they were honorable fighters. I don't know. To me, they ran in there. They were brave. They were kamikazes. They were doing their thing. But or maybe there's something I don't know. But I do know this: if they won, they would be the good guys because the winners write the history. And
so World War II is a rare example in human history where things polarized in a way that wasn't about greed or power struggles or any of that. It was really about good versus evil. Now you could say bad things about Churchill and FDR and everyone that was really involved in the war for the Allies, but the core thing is Japan employed horrible tactics. Like when they invaded China, they raped, tortured, burnt people alive in the streets, horrible atrocities, and those were their neighbors. So
wait, they burned people in the streets? How does that compare to the atomic bomb?
Let me exactly to the atomic bomb. We burnt people in the streets with it.
So here's the difference.
Technically, the radiation did that.
Yeah, but we did it big. We did it Texas style, right? We didn't just burn a person or two. We burnt a city.
So we call them fire bombings. So the way you firebomb a city, and the Allies did this a lot, is you studied the weather patterns. You didn't just say, okay, we'll go bomb them Friday because Friday the skies are going to be clear. You said let's hit them Friday because there's a low pressure zone, and on Saturday night the winds are coming in from the north. You designed a firestorm.
And this is what the good guys did.
This is what the good guys did.
I'm following.
Because they had bamboo structures.
And that's. That was in Japan. We also did in Germany. I knew a guy who was in Hamburg and was bombed. He was like 7 years old at the time. But what I'm talking about is the ideologies of the parties involved. At the top, at the core, Japan was evil. The things they were doing to the people around them were evil. We weren't doing anything like that. Neither were the British. Neither were the French. They weren't exterminating races.
Did we do anything like that?
Well, we did cut off Japan's oil, and they were pretty pissed about that.
Vietnam.
Well, we were looking for a way to get into
Vietnam.
the war.
We were wrong. Vietnam was a bad war, and we lost, and we should have. And there's an example.
You're anti-troop.
No, I'm anti-Vietnam. That was the dumbest. That was the dumbest war we've ever fought.
We used Agent Orange against them, which still deforms them to this day. Like babies come out deformed because of it.
I don't know about all that, but Vietnam is a
Agent Orange
horrible war.
is a chemical we poured into the forest designed to clear the forest so the troops wouldn't have to deal with these search and destroy ambushes.
I don't mean to cut off the examples if someone's going to be mad about it, but are there any examples where the bad guy won in war, where someone had the opportunity to write history?
Vietnam.
Wait, the bad guy? You did. All right, so you swapped stories on this one.
Well, the
bad guys won. The North Vietnamese won. They won.
Oh wait.
What do you mean where the bad guy or the
and we wrote it that way,
where somebody won the war but they still came off looking like the bad guy.
Yeah, I guess with the benefit of writing history, I can't think of an example.
Well, I can think of one right now. Iraq, exactly, Wings. Iraq.
Iraq War. The bad guy won that war.
You talking about the second one?
The second one.
Yeah, the second one, the Bush one.
Wow. So we're the bad.
First one was.
What about the shining beacon of democracy we created that's going to serve as a catalyst for the rest of the Middle East to say we want to be more like Iraq? Now, what happens in Iraq is driven by political forces instead of military forces, right? Iraq was a success in that, this is the argument. Iraq was a success in that now, instead of who has the most guns and who's willing to die in the fiercest way possible, it's who has the most votes, who has the political sway. That's what determines what gets done in Iraq today.
Yeah, that
why in the Middle East?
Look at the Palestinians and the
thousands of years. They just don't want it. They're sovereign nations. They say we don't want democracy. Screw you.
Hopefully, in 5 to 1 year post conflict, get a good breakdown of like more data of what you're talking about, like how much of the people fighting are conscripts or low trained people. Like what
in
does
World War II? It was massive. Like
right.
I want to say 41% of the United States Army was illiterate,
and all of Russia. Yeah.
Like,
all of the Russian
it was
army.
something like that, or maybe 41% had never been to school. Like it was some absurd stat like that. I've been watching World War II documentaries all week. I love that shit. I found like that Amazon Prime has Amazon video, whatever it's called, has like so many really good World War II docs from like 2018 and later. I'm sure you've seen like World War II in color, but there's one that's it's the Pacific in color, and
that's a great one.
And they have color footage that was super rare at the time to even be done, but like they based the show around these weird little bits of color footage that they have from the era. So you get a little bit of that weird backstory of like what a normal person's life was like at like the footage is some guy who's on vacation, like a film student in Hawaii. So he's filming hula girls and like people dancing and barbecuing, and then war. He's like, fuck, the war has started, and he's recording. It was really cool.
They're like serious documentaries, because I enjoy those. Like I know the
Very
Pacific in color. I've seen that because like the ones like the History Channel ones, like I don't want, like I don't give a fuck when it's like the Nazis and the satanic.
Oh no.
It's like, well, how about we learn about the tanks? Like that sounds more fun to me than like being like Hitler maybe liked demons, and it's like, well, I definitely don't fucking care. Like what
I watch. No, these.
Come on, show the war.
This isn't the trash. This is I really like the one about the Battle of Midway. I really liked the Pacific in color, and there was one about a specific Japanese island that was difficult to take. Maybe Caraway or Karakai or some
is
shit
that
like
Iwo
that.
Jima?
No, the island was called Caraway or something like that. It's just this little strip of nothing. Like there's barely trees on it. It's so little, and it's just bristling with guns and bunkers and stuff. Like there's no cover. I can't overstate like how flat and little this little strip that they sent an entire company of Marines or or battalion. They sent a 1,500 men like to take it, but it's being held by maybe an equal group of Japanese.
But they were tunneled in, right? Like they
were
like
in
Japanese,
bunkers everywhere.
Made a ton of tunnels.
And like one of the interesting little tales of that battle of taking that island, I think we lost 1,000 men, 1,000 Marines taking the island in the end.
Christ.
And the Marines that were there, they had a few of them still alive somehow. And he was like, by that night, we were so tired and beat down, shot to shit. If they'd attacked us then, they'd have pushed us right off the island, right into the water. We'd have went, but they didn't. And that next morning, help was coming. And I was like, oh, that's great. But why didn't the Japs attack? And then they go, unbeknownst to the Americans, they had blown up the admiral and his entire command staff the day before. Like someone just saw some guys running wearing like cool uniforms and like called them out, spotted them like battlefield, and like a naval gun like blew up.
There's a Jap in a cool hat at these coordinates. I think he's important. Like
they literally did that. Like that's the big part of the island. If you can imagine, look how little it is. You can see men at the bottom for scale.
Yeah,
that is a teeny tiny. This would be a small resort.
Yeah, this is. This is a nice little vacation island. You go spend the night or the day there.
Yeah, I imagine there used to be trees.
Yeah, there were more.
Yeah,
you can see the craters. They bombarded this shit with naval gunfire for like a very long time. I don't remember how long. Maybe a whole hours and hours and hours, thousands of shots. But it's so low they couldn't use their big guns because there's no like drop off. They're just skipping off the ground.
This is such a tiny island. You can literally see specks of people on the other. Other shore, on the opposite side, like little people. Like that's what a teeny little. And this wasn't Midway. This was a different one.
No, this is. I think is it Caraway or something like that.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's not Midway. Or
I love World War II stuff, but I want to learn more about World War I stuff.
Tarawa.
World War I is criminally underdone. It's a cool war, and no one talks about it ever.
I like learning about the gas attacks. I like learning about I don't know that it was cool. It's just like
interesting. It was interesting seeing the pivot from old style war to new style war.
Yeah, there were cavalry charges into machine guns and barbed wire, and it was like, wait, It's nope. You just wish that someone had been like, oh shit.
Dude, that was
this
a
isn't
huge
gonna work.
Yeah, like that may have even been World War II, or maybe it was World War One. No, it was World War One, like where the Polish like responded to the Nazi armament infantry. Yeah, the winged hussar. They respond against the armament that the Nazis had, and they just got absolutely
well, they
blown
weren't
apart.
Nazis.
The Kaisers. I'm sorry, I got
those
ahead of myself.
crowd-eating Kaisermen.
Well, no one seems to. What was their thing? No one ever talks about how much they disliked the Kaiser. Probably because you know what, the Kaiser was probably like, people will remember me for 100 years. It's like try 13, bitch, because another guy's gonna show up and he's gonna
remember World War One. World War One was the one where when Archduke Ferdinand was assassinated, there was just because of all of the treaties and pacts between every country in the world, it was like, oh, you're going to war with them, well, we're going to war with you. You're going to war with them, well, we're going to war with you. And it was like, you just wish that there had been telecommunications, because you know that someone could be like, whoa, hang on, let's get on Zoom, guys. like, hang on.
Which war would you rather fight in? All terrible choices. Vietnam jungle, Western Front trenches of World War I, or World War II Bastogne.
Man, I don't recall. Terrible. Tell me about Bastogne. Is that the really cold one?
It was
really
in Band of Brothers.
France,
it's
right?
super cold. They were in snowy foxholes, and artillery would just come out of nowhere and kill some of you.
Yeah.
So
you were freezing to death the whole time, getting frostbite, no supplies getting through the lines.
These are terrible options because, like, the Bastogne one, if that's the thing I'm thinking about in the Ardennes Forest or wherever it was, maybe. I think, like you said, you know, the mortars were coming in, the artillery was coming in, and the trees were splintering and blowing people up. People were getting frostbitten toes and shit. And I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but it seemed like within a day's walk or half a day's walk behind you was a decent sized town with soup and women. But you were out there in that hole. I think I take Bastogne and I fucking desert. Because there's somewhere to desert too. I can fucking hurt myself a little, and then I'm over there with the women and the soup. However, if I'm in Nam, oh my God, forget about the snakes and the spiders and the foot-long centipedes crawling about and the ants. The ants, they always talk about the ants. Forget about you're sweaty every day, all day, and you haven't had a shower in God knows how long. Charlie's out there, all right? You never know where you're going to step in a hole that's full of punji sticks covered in human shit, and you're going to lose your feet. You never know when you're going to get gut shot out there, and they're not going to realize that you're not dead. They're just going to leave you behind, and you're going to wake up and your intestinal cavity is full of bullet ants or some shit. Charlie's out there, and he's coming for you. I'm not doing Nam. Now, the World War I thing, that trench warfare, everybody imagines the trench perhaps as a dry sort of trench. Yeah. The problem was there's a thing called trench foot, which I don't think was even a thing before World War One. They were like, oh,
they invented trench foot.
They invented a new horrible thing to happen to people in World War One, I think, called trench foot. All right,
let's see some pictures of trench foot.
Oh, please no! It's where your feet just stay wet for long periods of times, and they basically just rot off your goddamn body. Now, if that's not bad enough, you've got gas.
Oh,
right. You've got mustard gas coming in, chlorine gas coming in, blinding you, scarring your esophagus and your lungs. Shell shock, it is both synonymous with PTSD and an actual thing that happened because there was so much goddamn shelling during that war. You're stuck in this fighting position, looking at the enemy 300 yards away for years, sometimes at a time. People getting stuck in the barbed wire. Depending on what side you're on, like if you're not facing the chemical attacks, if you're a German, then you never know when the Brits are going to tunnel up under your position and just blow you the fuck up. I'm not doing that. So I'm going to take Bastogne, and I'm definitely going to get shot in the thigh meat on like day one. Like just as soon as they show me my foxhole, I'm going to wait till I can see the medic. And my sidearm is going to go off mistakenly.
It's going to get your love handle. Oh, shucks.
Fucking the Jerry's got me.
It's just a flesh wound, Kyle. Yeah, but I need my flesh. I'll see you in town. What's the soup of the day?
What's the soup of the day?
I'm going to go with Bastogne too. Man, I just feel like it would be possible to stay warm. Yeah, I've slept in very cold before, and if I just get enough of the stuff, collect some coats off the dead guys, you can make yourself a little heat cabin there. Vietnam, it just seems so inescapable. Also, maybe it's just because I'm American and we kind of romanticize World War II. I believe in the cause. You're there, Battle of Bastogne, trying to free a people from being wiped off the face of the earth. Vietnam, what was the cause exactly? Prevent the spread
of a proxy war with the Soviet Union.
Yeah, built on lies, and I'm not getting into it. And World War One, what Archduke of Ferdinand or something?
Franz Ferdinand.
Ferdinand. Why is he my top priority again?
There were a lot of treaties, and that triggered this country to start a war, and then that triggered this country to come in to defend them, and that triggered another country to come in and attack them, and it just became a gigantic mess.
Yeah. It's almost like a schoolyard fight where no one wants to participate. They're all just need to somehow.
No, it's like a hockey fight or a baseball fight where it's like, all right, clear the benches. Fucking Omar beamed another guy. Let's go.
What I like about those baseball fights is like you can see like the guys who are really excited about it, who are like, "Let's go, boys!" Like hopping up, ready to go. And then you can see other guys on the team who are like, "Yeah, let me grab my hat and quick sip of water. Let me take my watch off the bat. And all right, let's. Oh, it's already scrum's almost over. I'll go over there and I'll grab the shirt of two of my teammates and go,
Most recently, I've been doing a lot of television. We're chasing down Nazis in South America. Which is fun. It's way better than pirates.
What? That's a thing? There's still Nazis in South America?
Yeah, they're really old, so it's kind of depressing. Like,
is that true?
You're creeping up on Nazis. They're in walkers.
No, they're not even in walkers. They're like in their deathbed. And then you're like, oh, hey, all that stuff that you gave to your kids and your grandkids, we're gonna go ahead and assume all of those assets because you're a horrible person and you shouldn't have lived this long. You should have died 60 years ago, but whatever.
Kyle,
wow. Yeah, some good old sins of the father, biblical shit. We know you had nothing to do with it, but sorry, go into the slums.
Yeah, well, they'll never really be in the slums, but I don't really feel that guilty. 7 million Jews is kind of a lot of Jews.
I'd say too many. Yeah.
You gotta go out on a limb there.
Yeah.
I'm not afraid to make that a stance. But I honestly, until the last 30 seconds, I would have put money that you were joking about the Nazis in South America thing.
No, not joking.
Wow.
No.
Nazis, how old, they have to be in their 80s, right?
90s.
90s.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Man.
This ties back to my, if you live an absolutely terrible life, but it works out for you until 93, it might have just worked out for you, period. Right? What's he going to get jail for the last month?
If you're on your deathbed and then some gringo walks in and it's like, hey, that big, huge ranch that you left for your kids, we're going to take that. And then everything that they have in their bank accounts that is connected to you in any way, we're going to take that too.
Okay, I'll admit that sucks. But his kids are 70, right? So even his kids did pretty well for a really long time.
Oh my God, I'm such an idiot. I was picturing children. Oh my God, I'm a fucking retard. This guy's great grandkids are old enough to vote.
Yeah. If his kids are in their 70s, then their kids might be in their 40s and 50s. His grandkids had a pretty good run at all these seized Jewish things from the previous century.
He's so old that he's estranged from the youngest members of his family. Where when they hear about it, great Uncle Ted's a fucking Nazi, they'll be like, "Well, he did bounce me weird on his knee." I can see that, that.
Oh, that's what that swastika tattoo on his neck was from. God, I'm an idiot.
Should have put it together.
Thought he just really liked American History X. He was a big Edward Norton fan.
It was on repeat constantly. Only a couple scenes though. Really weird. Same scenes. Yeah.
So you're filming a TV show with who?
So we did, the first season was called Hunting Hitler, and it was on the History Channel. And we looked at, if it was possible, had Hitler escaped out of the bunker in 1945, what would he have done? So my end, they brought in, when they hired me, they needed a guy that could use UAVs, that knew ground penetrating radar, that had hunted people, like high value targets type people. And I did it in reverse. So I started where, if I was him, where would I have gone? And then kind of followed the rat lines back to Argentina. And then to prove my theories, to see if it would have worked, we had to find other Nazis that had done that same thing, which is where the depressing part comes in.
Oh. Huh.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what's the reaction like when you walk in and I'm sure some of them are like, all right, well, fuck, I'm getting my comeuppance. And are other ones just like, huh? Like they have no idea why you're there.
Dude, they've been lying for so long. They still won't admit it. I'm like, hey, look, here's a picture of you. Here's your military ID card. Here's the address that you lived when you're in Berlin. Like, this is the boat that you came here on. Here's the day that you landed. Here's your signature that matches your signature in Germany. I
apologize. I don't even speak English or read English. I don't. I've lived here my whole life.
Second guess yourself though, because that's what I would be doing. Like, if I caught this guy and we had all this information, he's like, none of this seems familiar. I would be like, huh? Are we sure this is the dude?
No. Yeah. I mean, you have to understand the culture of Nazism and the secret, especially since 1945, the way that they've behaved. Living in Brazil, Colombia, Argentina, and they've had to live this way through countless presidents, some of which supported them, like Perón, like Evita's husband. Evita, that girl. Her husband was very supportive of the Nazis, and he was actually part of the Nazi party. But then 2 presidents after him, they started a commission to track down Nazis. So then these guys all like shuffled and had to hide and hopping borders. So they've been doing this a really long time, and they got really good at it. There's areas in Argentina that still exclusively speak German. And me being a big, red-bearded white guy, I walk into a coffee shop, and they're just sitting there talking in German to me. I was like, no, sprechen no Deutsch, dude. Like, let's speak Spanish. I speak Spanish. I'm in Argentina. Can we speak Spanish? Is that cool? Can I order coffee? Oh.
That's
weird.
Wow. Spanish.
So how many Nazis
to answer your original question, what am I doing? I'm doing television. I'm still training for a fight. I still go to Africa to try to find poachers. I haven't been looking for pirates very recently. I'm trying to bait ISIS to try to come and kill me, but they're a bunch of pussies, so they're not going to do that.
I told everyone about your T-shirt. Like, I was looking forward to you coming on the show. And I guess, am I going to mess this up? Did the CIA contact you and say that they had a credible threat?
That would have been cooler, but no, it was the FBI. Like,
I mixed them up.
As long as it wasn't Twitter. Like, oh, fuck you, go die. Like, you take it a little seriously.
I get my death threats on YouTube, and they're just fat rednecks. So
yeah, that I could aspire to that. You have me there. I don't have a lot of fat rednecks.
No. If you saw the video, you wouldn't be impressed. He's just some dude driving, holding a cell phone.
I don't know. Any dude taking a video, especially if he's fat. I think it's kind of humorous and entertaining. It's like, I'm gonna kill you. Like, don't mind my man boobs and my Pabst over there. I like the blue ribbon. Hey, Henrietta, bring me something to drink. No, I'm gonna kill you though. I think that's hilarious.
Well, we're going right back to Nazi Germany. After the fall of the Third Reich, many high-ranking Nazis and their families fled Germany to the South American refuge of Argentina. There, many of them lived out their days in peace in small communities that were almost entirely of Germanic descent. In these communities, they spoke German and often did very little to hide their former identities. However, some of the more notorious Nazis, to include Adolf Eichmann, who of course was the architect of Hitler's final solution, he was later captured, of course, by Israeli Mossad agents and sentenced to death. One of the few death penalties in Israel's history, I believe, maybe the only. Joseph Mengele also fled there, a Nazi doctor who performed a gruesome human experiment at Auschwitz death camp. He lived out the rest of his life in South America and died of natural causes in 1979. Lived a pretty full life. Walter Walter Ralph also.
He actually would have gotten to see Grease.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
thought I'd put that out there.
How
for
can
you.
you forget that classic? John Travolta just really breaking it. Yeah.
Oh man, I'm not gay. Yeah.
Fucking Rizzo, the whole thing. Walter Ralph, another noted Nazi, who his note to fame was that he created the mobile gas chamber by modifying. Yeah, Walter Ralph. He created the mobile gas chamber by modifying large cargo trucks to divert their exhaust into airtight chambers in the rear that could hold up to 60 people. He lived in South America.
Mobile gas chamber thing.
Well, I'm bringing it to you right now. This is hot off the presses from 1943. He lived out the rest of his days in South America until his natural death in 1984. These are but a few of the many, many high-ranking and powerful Nazis who escaped justice, if not for the rest of their lives, then at least for many, many years. But what of Hitler? We're told that he killed himself in his bunker in the final days of the war and commanded that his and his newly married wife, Eva Braun's body were to be burned. So that they might not be taken as trophies or displayed publicly, as was the body of Mussolini. Hitler had seen this and didn't want the same to happen to him, we're told. But why? Why not attempt to escape the same way so many of his underlings and compatriots would? Fleeing to South America had been the escape plan of the Nazis for several years. As soon as the Soviets started invading, a lot of Nazis saw that the writing might indeed be on the wall, and they started making plans. The routes, the methods, the funding to do so had been put in place for years. I put forward that, in fact, Hitler, a man who employed body doubles and excelled at propaganda, did in fact fake his own death and escape, like so many others, to Argentina, where he likely lived out the rest of his life in hiding under an assumed identity. The Soviets, of course, known for their truthfulness, they claimed that they captured Hitler's supposed remains not long after his death, just outside his bunker in Berlin. They were, by all reports, badly burned and amounted to little more than bone, teeth, and a severely burned body that was described as mostly mush that was unrecognizable as a human. However, they did not use these as trophies. Rather, they hid them away and eventually destroyed them. The few samples of the skull that remained were DNA tested eventually and found not only to not be Hitler's, but to not even be the skull of a man. We are left to believe that in Stalin's version, yes, that's absolutely a truthful thing. You can Google that. Stalin's version of it was a woman's skull. It was not Hitler's skull. It was a woman's skull. Stalin's version of events.
Hitler was a woman?
Yes.
Whoa,
Kyle. This is a conspiracy.
God damn it.
Kyle, if you can discern someone's sex from their skull after death, that would mean that gender is real. And
yeah,
so that's
you're assuming gender.
So we're left to believe Stalin's version of events, a man well known for his deception of the people and pro-Soviet propaganda. He'd tell all sorts of lies, things that would make the Soviets look good, the West look bad. Meanwhile, however, throughout the middle of the last century, the CIA, Mossad, MI5, and KGB all had files of claims that Hitler was living in South America, and they pursued them actively. If Adolf Hitler killed himself in Berlin, asks one, why were the world spy services still looking for him into the middle of the 1950s? It was reported by dozens of news reporters in September of 45 that British MI5 were hunting Hitler, who had reportedly been altered by a plastic surgeon. They also ran comments by the deputy mayor of Berlin, who was convinced that Hitler was alive. Such was the persistence of these claims that 1 month later, the Supreme Allied Commander Dwight Eisenhower suggested that yes, Hitler might still be alive. In fact, there were multiple reports that Hitler was living with his old comrades in Argentina, having by some accounts been spirited out of Berlin, flown to a German air base in Denmark, and then taken across the Atlantic by U-boat. The Fuhrer, one FBI file reported, had arrived at his Argentinian ranch hideaway by horseback. Luftwaffe Captain Peter Baumgart claimed that he flew Hitler and Braun to safety in Denmark on April 28th, 1945, stopping overnight in Magdeburg due to an Allied bombing. Made during his trial for war crimes in Poland in December 47, Baumgart's story was reported in newspapers throughout the entire world. Why would a man on trial for his life admit to further crimes that were new information to the court?
Being tortured.
Okay. So in conclusion, one of two things are true. Either we believe that the Soviet version of events and assume that one of the world's most powerful men who'd survived 6 assassination attempts, who employed body doubles and was very secretive, died at his own hands in defeat, or we believe the evidence to the contrary that are in our own common sense. Hitler did not die in 1945 and likely lived out the rest of his days in relative comfort and luxury in Argentina amongst friends and loved ones.
That's interesting. I don't buy it, though.
What a nice story.
Seems like it would be
Happily
very
ever
difficult
after.
to get out of where he was in that bunker.
My take on it is
Everybody else escaped.
Hitler was
surrounded.
kind of famous.
No, they were not. They weren't surrounded because everybody left.
But he wouldn't.
But the rest of them were turned into the Nuremberg trials. They didn't escape.
Not the people in the bunker. I just gave you a list of the people who escaped. They were all there at the bunker too.
There were some hardcore people that did get out.
No one recognized him for the next 50 years of his life or whatever there was left.
They claim plastic.
Did he have a razor? If he had a razor, I believe he was able to escape.
Yeah, my name
as he just whoosh that fucker off. You would not recognize Hitler without his mustache.
That's true. He probably looks like a normal ass dude without the mustache.
Yeah, that one move, and you just don't even look like
he
the guy.
spent the rest of his life acting under the pseudonym Charlie Chaplin.
Yeah. My name is Miguel. I am from Argentina. Yeah, no.
I am Peter Julava.
I'm pretty sure Charlie Chaplin was the one who was like, "This bastard stole my mustache."
Look.
More than the other one.
Have you ever seen the Whitest Kids You Know episode where they send Charlie Chaplin to go? I think they're like charging. Oh, I know what it is. The Allies are at Hitler's bunker, and they're like psyching themselves up, like, "All right, boys, this is it. Hitler's in there. Let's go take him." And they rush in, and it's Charlie Chaplin, like doing his whole bit with the cane and the hat and everything. And they're like, "That's not Hitler. That's Charlie Chaplin." And you're like, "Oh my God, they really think it's Charlie Chaplin." And then Charlie Chaplin's like reach it, like, you know, he's doing the mime thing. He's like reaches over like for the Allied soldier's gun, and he's like, yeah, and he goes and like kills all fucking 3 of them. And you think, Hitler got the best of them. And then Hitler walks out of the back and he goes, "Thank you, my greatest friend, Charlie Chaplin." They're both fucking there.
See, that's the conspiracy I want to hear. But also, you raised a lot of interesting points there. I like it. I'm interested by it. And I have an inherent want to believe in conspiracy theories.
And that Hitler is still alive. I understand, yeah.
Dude, if Hitler were alive right now, wouldn't he be like 100?
Oh, not still alive. I shouldn't say that. He survived.
Oh, no, he's still
alive. You ever watch that movie? You ever watch the movie Boys from Brazil?
Oh, no. Yeah.
That's a sick movie. So the premise of that is that they have cloned Hitler. And they have 80 Hitler clones, these little boys, and they have placed them in similar social conditions as Hitler grew up in. His father has the same job. He's like a civil servant. The mother is like a housewife or something, like whatever Hitler grew up in, like income and everything. And they're placed throughout the fucking world. And they were created in Brazil by this scientist. And this guy gets to the bottom of it. He finds out
Dr. Mengele that actually got it together. Yeah. Gregory Peck.
Gregory Peck. Yeah.
It was a great movie. Yeah.
Is this a movie or is this something?
It's a movie. It's a movie. It's like a Hollywood movie, and it's really fucking good. And there's a guy going around trying to kill all the little boys. And I think Gregory Peck is. And then there's a guy trying to prevent him from doing it. It's fucking good.
Yeah, Gregory Peck is Dr. Mengele, and he's like in charge of the whole thing. And they decided, or they figured out scientifically that if you just cloned Hitler and grew him up, that he wouldn't turn into Hitler unless he lived the same kind of life. So the father died when Hitler was a kid. So they had assassins go around and shoot the father of all these kids that they placed in certain situations around the world. They had go through the whole thing of making Hitler's life like it was, and then someone found out Simon Wiesenthal or something. I don't know.
Yeah,
and then I love that one. There's one line where Dr. Mengele, Gregory Peck, is at a big party in Brazil, and there's Nazis everywhere, and the place is done up like Berlin. And this ugly woman says something to him, and he just goes, "Shut up, you ugly bitch!" And it's delivered perfectly. Gregory Peck, you might remember him from fucking To Kill a Mockingbird. Like just a brilliant actor saying, "Shut up, you ugly bitch." Yeah, catch it if you can. It's probably on Netflix.
It's good. It's fucking good.
Yeah.
Now, Kyle, are we to believe that Hitler escaped and didn't try again?
I think he saw the
He
jig
was
was up.
motivated.
You know, I think that he did have a lot of illnesses. I think he had Parkinson's, and he was also addicted to several substances, a methamphetamine derivative being one of them. So I think that he just retired, you know?
I don't know, man. It's hard to retire. Be like George Foreman. He's coming back. You know, he's coming back again.
To be honest, I put more faith into doctors who are into butt stuff than Hitler lived for another 40 years.
I literally, no jokes aside, do not. That's how unlikely that doctors are into butt stuff. Although
the Hitler thing I have heard for quite a while. It's one of those things that people have brought up for decade after decade. So
mark my words.
While I think it does have some validity,
first.
It does have some validity, I believe. But I think there's more proof that he didn't than there is proof that he did.
The main piece of proof is that they claim that they have some of his teeth, and that his dentist was like, "Oh yeah, that's his teeth," and it's like,
what Nazi teeth? Yeah.
Those look like Nazi teeth to me. Yeah. It's the trial of Adolf Eichmann, and they have the real footage from the trial. There's Adolf Eichmann sitting in his glass box, and it was.
Is he a Nazi?
Is he a Nazi? Yeah,
he was the main Nazi. He was the architect.
Does he sound like a Nazi?
I'm almost positive that he wasn't the main one.
Yeah, the main one I think of is a different Adolf.
Yeah,
Goebbels.
No,
not Adolf.
No.
Keep
The
going.
main one,
Keep
Hitler.
going.
He's got a
mustache. No. Okay, I know about Hitler. I'm saying that Adolf Eichmann was
knew about him.
For the listener, Hitler was the leader of Nazi Germany, starting in the early 30s. And then
who was Hitler again? No, so Hitler did a lot of things. I'm not trying to. By the way, I'm not trying to take any onus off of Hitler here. But Adolf Eichmann was the guy who's like, it said it on his plaque.
I was not trying to take
anything
away
from
him.
Like on his door. No. Oh,
far be it from him.
Big ups to Hitler, but Adolf Eichmann.
Christ.
No, so they got him in that fucking. It's what they did. This happened in 1960, many years after the war. Obviously, they caught his ass. The Mossad did, kidnapped him out of South America, injected him with something, threw him in a uniform, drug him through the airport, and was like, we've got a sick man here, faking Spanish accents. Got him on the plane. He wakes up in Tel Aviv. Guess what? That thing you signed while we were slapping you around for 3 days in that building, that says you're going on trial in Israel, and you agreed to it. They throw him in the glass box and they put him on trial, and the documents are piled sky high. They bring a witness from every country that he killed Jews in, an eyeball witness. They've got the documents there of everyone who came into Auschwitz for like a couple years, and the numbers match the numbers that everybody's fucking tatted up with, so they know it's a real document. And they've got quotes from him. The prosecutor has a fucking number on his arm, by the way. That was interesting. And he's going through the.
That doesn't look good for that guy. Then it
doesn't look good for anybody.
Are you saying it's personal?
It was so personal.
Very personal. Yeah,
dude. I was fascinated by this thing because he defended himself 80% of the way through the trial, saying like, no, that's not true. I was following orders in Hungary. I was following orders in Poland. I didn't say this. I didn't say that. And they're like, here's some quotes from you, and they read this. It's just very incriminating quote from him. And Eichmann's like, maybe I'd been drinking, or maybe I didn't say that. I don't remember saying that. And it's like, dude, you're done. It doesn't really come across as well as I'm doing it because there's German being translated to Hebrew, and there's a delay.
That's a very funny thing to like focus on in like a Holocaust trial, though, is like we're going to mention now something pretty mean. You said. It's like
no.
I think you're burying the lead here, Mr. Attorney. I think you should lead off stronger.
There's hurt feelings in so many countries.
Him incriminating himself, and it's him talking about
Zach
his
just
true
posted
belief
one of the
as
quotes. It's fucked up.
It's him letting you know that he's a real Nazi, and someone who's a real Nazi does their job with like joy in their heart.
Jesus
the way he
Christ.
kills the Jew. He's really laying it on thick about being a Nazi.
This quote is outrageous. I'm scared to read it for fear that it'll be like a TikTok.
I will leap into my grave laughing because the feeling that I have 5 million human beings on my conscience is for me a source of extraordinary satisfaction. Yeah, that's a good quote. Doesn't play well in court.
I don't think
you'd
the
imagine.
jury's gonna like that.
Can you like if you saw that in a movie, you'd be like, come on, I need a realistic bad guy. I need someone with a little nuance in the mix. It's like if Tony Soprano was like, and another thing, all the Jews got to go. It's like all right, Tony. How about you handle New York first?
Tony always liked the Jews.
He did.
The documentary is very cool. I didn't watch the last 10 minutes of it. I'm sure they're gonna fucking kill him or something like that. I had to come do this.
Yeah, it doesn't go well. Eichmann.
I think it ends poorly for Eichmann.
Hanged or shot.
I think he escapes at the end. I think it turns out Hitler was alive the whole time. Sneaks
Goes
him
to
out.
Argentina.
Dark Side of the Moon. Iron Sky, baby.
Of course.
No, idiots. It's Antarctica.
Yeah.
That's where Hitler went.
Have you seen
Argentina
the montage of Joe Rogan not getting jokes? Like they're going over his head. Dude, I like Joe's show. And Joe knows more about comedy than me, and he's funnier than me, all those things. But God, he doesn't get a joke. He's having this discussion with this lady, and they're talking about the Nazis or something, and she does this really good wordplay about how you could defend anything that they've done. And Joe's like, "What about the Nazis? Did they have a right?" And she's like, "They did, the Third Reich." And he doesn't get the little wordplay joke that he's making. He goes, I don't think it's right. I think it's Reich. Jamie, what is a Reich? What is a Reich? And he doesn't know what a Reich means. Empire. He doesn't know what a Reich is, and she's sitting there like really awkward. So the First Reich would have been, I guess, the Roman Catholic Empire or whatever, and the Second Reich would have been
the Ottoman Empire. Yeah,
and then Hitler creating the Third Reich in the 40s, and then you often hear the Fourth Reich from neo-Nazis and such, and that's the.
There's
there's only so much.
Well, we're hoping to staunch that down and keep.
Does Reich necessarily mean bad?
No,
because couldn't America be a Reich?
It's like that Charlie Chaplin mustache. Not necessarily bad. Bad today.
The meaning has
Michael Jackson or Michael Jordan.
The meaning has changed over time, but Hitler meant it as empire, and we mean it as empire, and you got to go back to a little bit before. I don't know if
that's a terrible track record of Reichs. Like the First Reich, you said it was the Roman Empire.
Roman Catholic. I would have been like the Roman
wildly successful. Wildly successful, and then the Ottoman Empire.
The church,
not as successful, but wildly successful. Huge drop off on that.
I was waiting for Taylor's Third Reich.
I was.
Did you see it? We got the first one. We got the second one.
But that's pretty embarrassing.
Well, they're not like aspiring to empires. Those are the Germanic empires.
Yeah.
Those were the Germanic empires in particular. Like that's what he's aspiring to be, the third Germanic empire. Not just the third in succession, because there's many families that ruled and it changed hands many times over those hundreds of years. But he's talking about a new thing. Didn't work out, luckily.
Didn't they? Good for everybody else. Didn't work out so much.
Yeah, not luckily, thanks to the sacrifice of like millions and millions of
100 million European men.
Oh, is that correct? The Weimar Republic was the Second Reich, not the Ottoman Empire. That was the ruling party that Hitler overthrew.
Yes. Yeah, that was in the that was post
20s and 30s. Yeah,
post
the weakened
revolution.
I think it ended in the 20s or maybe even 1920 flat, but it goes back to the 1800s, right? Yeah.
If you had to go live in any empire,
that's a really good documentary, though. I highly recommend it. It's fun to see
empire.
Yeah, there you go.
Any empire before the year 1000.
Ooh.
So it's got to be a good while ago. You can't just pick up something super recent.
Question: do I get to be Genghis Khan?
No,
if
but
so,
you get, how about this?
Mongolia.
You're not Genghis Khan. You're not even a super high-ranking general, but you're like a lieutenant he respects. You're in a good place.
Okay. All right. Ooh. I mean, peak Rome was probably kind of awesome, actually.
That's what I was going for. Yeah.
Peak Rome was pretty fucking sweet, I think, for a lot of folks. Or maybe peak Athens. Peak Athens was probably all right, too.
I'm going
that would
Rome,
be cool.
100%.
Yeah, Rome has got to be it. Like nobody else.
Toilets.
Yeah,
they've got toilets, dude. Like
running water.
You can't say that about everyone. They had hot running water if you're rich. But I think you could just be a soldier.
Olive
I think
oil.
you could sign up for the army and eat and have a job. It seems like Rome was a much better place than say 500 years ago. Fucking United Kingdom.
You want to be like Rome in the year like 3. Not like 433. Like
I based this entirely on the TV show Spartacus, but I think I'd like to own gladiators.
I bet that would be a stressful job. Based on what
Badiatus
had to do.
Like, you got to specify, what white ones. But like,
they would be from every corner of the kingdom.
There was a lot of sex in that show, and everyone was a fucking fitness influencer. So,
but would you want to have sex with gladiators, like people who are trained to kill?
You're judging me now, and that's
you could find sexy whores to have sex with who like don't know how to kill you. And don't spend all day training to do so.
I was really talking about the female staff. There were like orgies, and all those girls were 10s.
That one.
You know what I would do?
Crazy torpedo tits.
If I were if I were the what was Badiatus called in Spartacus? What is the name of the guy who owns all the gladiators, the gladiatorium or some shit?
No,
I would want to be
the guy
like
who's like Proximo in Gladiator, like the promoter.
Yes, that guy. I would want to like be known for something, like those guys with the big nets and the tridents. Like I wouldn't just be a gladiator trainer. It'd be like we got to go to Tayloratus's whatever in order to
Gladiator
get the
school.
finest net throwers in all of Rome. Like he's known for that. Like that would be fun. Actually, it probably wouldn't also be fun because you'd have a bunch of dangerous.
It should be
men.
all smoke and mirrors. Like you should be the spear master, and then you're like just poke him.
Man, he's the best gladiator trainer. His trick is he gives them the longest spears in the kingdom.
I want to be like a sword maker or some shit. Like someone who was like so good at his craft that you could charge like a boatload of money for it. But like you're kind of cool, like whether you're a soldier or a gladiator or whatever. Like you gotta have a Maticus fucking blade, dude. You gotta have a Feroticus blade.
I like you'd be jacked.
Maticus Feroticus is great. I'm on board.
Steel.
Yeah, that would be sweet. Living in Rome, but like so quickly, you'd be like, oh, this is worse running water. Like this is like,
oh, for sure.
They have bathrooms, and like everybody else is like, isn't this great? We all get to sit in this room and like sit shit next to each other with no dividers. Like this is so much better than everywhere else on the planet.
Yeah.
And they didn't tell me the running water here was downstream of the latrines.
Yeah,
at least the Chinese don't own it.
Wipe your ass with like a sponge on a stick. That's like,
not me.
I mean, I'm great. Come on. I mean, maybe you don't. But
everybody loves dogs. Everybody who's normal loves dogs. Well, and some people who aren't normal.
Hitler had dogs.
Hitler loved dogs. That's what I was thinking. He was all about German shepherds. I don't know if I don't know if it was a German shepherd thing or a dog thing because I don't think I've ever seen him admiring.
I've seen video of him playing
dogs.
with it. I've seen video of him playing with his dog.
Blondie?
Other dogs. Blondie, yeah.
Yeah, I remember that.
Remarkable that you know that.
Yeah. Oh, I've seen the History Channel.
And It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
And Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
And you combine those together and you've got it pretty well wrapped up. The Eagle's Nest, the Third Reich, Hitler.
See, I was trying to say I learned it from a documentary, but you're more right about It's Always Sunny. I learned that.
I don't know how I feel about him poisoning the dog in the end. They say it was to test the potency of his cyanide capsules that he gave the dog the cyanide. But I always, and I guess it is because I could imagine putting the dog down because the Russians are coming. Like I'm not going to let the Russians get Blondie, but who knows what they'll do? Their dirty fucking Slavic hands. I mean, we raped our way across Eastern Europe all the way to fucking Stalingrad. They're gonna want some payback on Blondie.
Yeah.
Yeah,
they're gonna rape the dog. You think
they may rape it? They may indeed rape Blondie, and I wouldn't want that. So I
probably
put the
leave the
down.
dog alone and steal the washing machine, just based on what I'm looking at.
And I think that he did test the cyanide capsule on the dog, though. He ended up taking the cyanide and then shooting himself, which is an interesting. Let's make double.
Why would you do two? Like, and how do you not trust cyanide? Isn't like my understanding of a cyanide pill wasn't like, and that's the exact amount to end your life. I thought it was like, this is a chunk of poison. It will kill you. Like you're going to die. It could kill 8 people if we all split this. Maybe I'm
no. Sometimes people survive it, and sometimes they're scarred by it. I guess. Remember that was the whole deal with that James Bond villain, is he had bitten his. Obviously, it's James Bond, but he had bitten the capsule, and it had fucked his whole face up because he survived it. And then
was that the guy who was
captured
like,
and tortured?
Don't put it in your pocket.
Yeah,
Okay.
Different movie, but yeah, that's Javier Bardem.
No, it's the same movie. It's the same
just imagine.
Mr. Bond, don't put that in your pocket, or it will become just a magical orb. I've never seen that movie. I don't know what it's about.
That's how he looks at it. He's like, ooh. And then
he
yeah, you nailed it. That's perfect. Yeah. That's good.
I mean, in World War II, you had we basically cut all the Japanese supply lines off. We enticed them to attack us. We wanted them to attack us so we could get into the war there too. So we'd have justification.
Yeah, but embargoing your enemy supply line is like step one in
our enemy at that point.
Well, they were the enemies of the entire in that part of the world.
At that point, we were in a situation where. Well, we were in a situation at that point where we were doing everything we could. The war was not popular with the American populace, but everyone with any. See, we weren't connected with the media like we are now. The American public didn't know what was going on, and you couldn't tell them. But our government knew how horrible things were going in Europe and how bad things were going in Asia. And of course they wanted the war to start, but I don't know if they let the attack on Pearl Harbor happen, because that was a major blow.
Yeah,
that wasn't
that's
like
a big conspiracy theory.
Yeah, that wasn't like
that's not the Japanese theory either. I mean, they had declassified reports leak out from World War II that showed Roosevelt basically making orders to basically embargo these people to the point they were ready to attack us.
But no. See, we were like halfway involved in the war already. We were giving tanks, we were giving bullets, we were giving. Hold on, we were supplying the Allies, and we were messing with like supply lines and embargoes and stuff like that. We did everything but commit troops. I don't think that's the same thing as inviting them to attack U.S. soil.
No, I agree. Now I have heard some reports about some of the earliest U.S. radar installations were in that area, and them ignoring the radar reports of Japanese planes coming in. But still, doesn't make sense to me. Why wouldn't you react to it and save a few of those ships?
Because
it doesn't matter how many people died. If they attacked,
people love vengeance, Kyle. How many times have you watched Death Wish? How many times have you watched?
I just think it's bad strategy. It doesn't make it. Why not try to get the ships out of the harbor?
Right. If it just one innocent person dies from Pearl Harbor, that's all you need.
Yeah. All you need is like, oh, so apparently the Japanese attacked us today. They sent all these fighters. They, what are they? If the ships aren't there, then they're going to bomb the shipyards.
They're going to bomb all these fighters. They damaged the harbor. They took out half or 1/3 of the ships they would have if they weren't just sitting ducks, and that's enough to start. We're good to go.
Yeah, a lot of people don't. The most impressive thing, and I love World War II as it's a horrible thing, but studying it as a piece of history, the most impressive thing about World War II is how what happened in the United States right after Pearl Harbor. If you look at the shape our economy was in, if you look at where our industry was at that time, if you look at our workforce, and then you see what happened in the next 3 years, it's insane.
Well, we went from there was no other. Like the auto industry was bombed to shit in Germany and Japan. All there was American cars.
No, that's not what I'm talking about. No, there were no American cars. We stopped making cars.
I understand that, but we still had our factories intact. So when we brought our boys back, they could go right back to work.
No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about how many ships and tanks and jeeps we built.
Oh yeah,
and how fast we did it. I'm talking about that every man, woman, and child chipped in. And I wonder if that would happen again. I wonder if there were a similar tragedy. What if Los Angeles?
I really think it would.
As horrible as it is, God, that would be inspirational.
Yeah, I remember,
so after 9/11, everybody was flying flags on their car. Everybody was dreaming of getting involved. People were lining up at the doors to join the Army, Marines, Navy, and Air Force. After 9/11, the United States was motivated to do something about that attack, and it was nothing compared to World War II. It was nothing compared to World War II. So I think if someone really did an attack like that, the United States would mobilize and have an enthusiasm around a common cause that we haven't seen in our lifetimes. It would just blow away what happened for 9/11. And
my favorite things to watch are the things that are the documentaries and History Channel programs about World War II, when they're like, over the next 6 months, the United States would produce, and they give some outrageous number of like tanks, jeeps, and shit.
Well,
They
can
rebuilt the
I just put
Navy.
this spout out before I get interrupted again?
Yes.
Ford made a B-29 Super Fortress every 59 minutes.
That's what I'm talking about. That shit right there.
They were putting them out faster than the German could put them down.
Exactly. Same thing with tanks. I like that idea. Tanks. It took 3 of our tanks to kill 1 of their tanks, so we just made 5.
that's an interesting strategy, because now it feels like we're on the other side.
Yeah, maybe so.
Yeah, but I'm just like this. Like, how many Kia factories would get shut down if we went to war with Korea? They'd be making tanks. Americans would take them over, and we'd make tanks out of them.
Yeah, see, the thing about modern technology is, though, we could destroy every Kia factory in Korea. It's 10:50 p.m. right now on the East Coast. By midnight, if we wanted to, there wouldn't be a Kia plant left in the world.
I want that power. I want that power.
That's a fact. It just is. There's submarines right in that ocean over there. They could shoot Tomahawk cruise missiles over there. They could shoot nukes over there if it was that serious. I mean, people always call the U.S. this monster and this bully militarily. We're just thumping you, buddy. We're just slapping you around a little bit. We haven't been serious about shit for like 60 years.
Oh my God.
We're being real nice about this thing. We really are. We're not this big bully.
We
we're
did
like
take a rack over in 2 weeks?
We're like the big kid at school that everybody maybe he's not a nice guy, but he doesn't beat you bloody every day. He just kind of slaps you around a little. Get away from me. I don't like dealing with you. What? I can't have your lunch money? And he just called you some dirty names.
Kyle, big fan of the military-industrial complex.
Big fan. Big fan.
Love it.
My favorite. You ever play a game called Civilization Revolution? I have. Favorite part? Military-industrial complex. I like getting those factories going. Using the Americans, pumping out a bunch of tanks. We're going over to Woody's Gamertag's place, surrounding him, putting the artillery out there, just slowly crushing his cities. It's a good time.
And we're live.
That's not as cool.
No, it's not.
They didn't have as good uniforms.
Nope. That would be more acceptable to dress up as World War I Germans than the Nazis.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely, because they weren't evil. They were just, it was a big land dispute. Just lots of treaties and stuff falling apart. Yeah, the World War I Germans weren't quite the evil empire that the World War II ones were. Man, those people were evil, eh?
Does anybody else think that they should have struck out and after the second time in 25 years, Germany decided to try and, take over Europe? They should have been like, you know what? No, none of this again. We're shutting this down. I guess we did try that, splitting Germany up. Didn't pan out.
That World War II was like the most successful takeover in recent time, right? Like for invasions, right? Like, I mean, the British Empire was pretty huge, like the biggest of them all. But I mean, that was what, 1800s? I can't remember. I'm not.
Well, it depends how you're going to categorize it, right? Because the British Empire expanded over hundreds of years, bigger and bigger and bigger. And Hitler was like, boom, that was like years go by, and he owns most of Europe. It was an explosive blitzkrieg where he was just conquering all of Europe. He
had a real weak hold on it. That's the thing. Like I have a hard time calling it successful when he held it for, I'm making up numbers, 18 months or something. By today's war standards,
fair,
that's a flash in the pan.
But everybody came in and bullied up on him, right? Like he didn't. It's not like the French took things over. It's not like the Poles came in and took their shit back. It was like, no, the Americans and the Russians put him in a vice from either side and kind of took the stuff back. It kind of bullied him, if you think about it. Hitler's the victim in all this.
Because he was bullied.
Yeah, like there's no 2-on-1, no 2-on-1. If you see two guys,
you're leaving out Britain entirely.
You're leaving out like a lot of Axis powers here.
Well, after Britain, it falls off a bunch.
Britain would have fought. They'd have had Britain if it weren't for us anyway. We're just kind of propping them up with constant food supplies and munitions and fuel and all that stuff. Like, come on, they survived as long as they did because of that little body of water that separated them from France.
Imagine like. I didn't know, I guess I probably should have known this, but that the Japanese didn't tell Hitler that they were going to bomb Pearl Harbor. And it was just a surprise. And so, like, I bet part of Hitler knew as soon as that happened that, the end was not approaching immediately, but that it had begun. Because it was like he'd already pissed off the Soviet Union. I had no idea, like, how much bigger the Soviet Union's army was, even though they were poorly conscripted and everything, poorly trained. Because like all of these battles I'm watching in this documentary are like, oh, and then they used, the German armor used a pincer movement on Minsk or whatever, and 400,000 Russians were captured. And it's like, fuck, they must be running low on guys. And it's like, and then they moved to this city and captured it. 600,000 were captured. And then it's like, oh my God, like, how did that not end sooner? And it's like, well, Stalin conscripted 16 million more men into his service. And it's like, oh, okay, this is how. He just had a giant country full of people, and just did a meat grinder.
Absolutely. That's why when we played Company of Heroes, but as when you played as the Russians, your squads had more men in them.
Yep. Yeah, they were weaker, but you could pump out a ton of them.
I'm going to take that as fact. I don't know enough to dispute that, but I'm going to just say, like, yeah, sure.
A lot of my geopolitics come from civilizations. I don't know about this Company of Heroes bullshit.
Yeah, it's a super interesting show. It's from like 2009, so it's like 8 years old now. But World War II in HD. If anyone out there hasn't checked that out yet, it's really interesting.
Or in color, isn't it?
Yeah, you're right. World War II in color. You're right.
Yeah, I've seen all that. It's very good. I love those old. I love World War II, I guess, which I didn't like. Whenever they caught that fucking Nazi that ran the people over in Charlottesville, they go to his his teacher from high school. He's like, he loved World War II, especially the weaponry. I'm like, Jesus, don't poison that. Like, come on, it's interesting shit. You could be interested in World War II and German weaponry without being a fucking Nazi. Like I love the Jews.
For sure.
I think they might be the best people. You want to talk about the master race? It might be the Jewish people, motherfucker. So I kind of didn't like.
They're in the running, right? They go on the short list. Them and the Asians.
Highest IQs, per capita, the most money. They, so much wealth and property and influence, globally speaking.
They've locked down an entire block over by where I live, and the only people I've ever seen actually ride Razor scooters in this century or in this decade are the Hasidic Jews kids. Like, they are shredding with top hats and Razor scooters, and I'm like awesome. It doesn't matter what time of day it is, I'll just be driving down the street and like, there you go. I'm like, all right, like, yeah, own it. Like, I
little curls blowing in the wind.
But they're not little. These things are hanging. Like, I'm all for it.
You are Canadian. I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah,
Reddit.
so that's
Oh, no, you see that Reddit post where they were showing where all the Allied and Axis powers were signing that document to end World War II, and it's one of those super official documents, right? It's the document where the leaders of each nation are signing to end World War II. And so, at the top, it's got this big header, we the nations of Earth, fucking blah, blah, blah. And then it's like, it's got printed, Prime Minister of Japan and, whatever the guy from America was, Rear Admiral MacArthur, whoever the fuck, I don't remember who it was. And it's like down the list. And you're supposed to be like, it's got your name printed and then a line. And then you're supposed to sign on that. Canada fucks up, signs on the wrong side of the line. So every country below them had to write in next to their name who the fuck they were, because everybody had to get shifted down. So the last name is just written in the margin on the form that ends World War II. They didn't bring a second copy, and Canada ruined the one they had.
How did Canada? Who fucked it up in Canada?
I just kept fighting.
Let me see if I can find it.
Should have just. Yeah, it's just like, well, this is not up to our standard of surrender.
Yeah, I got it right here.
Canada, disrespect.
You had the insult to dishonor. War back on. Yeah, look at the shit. It's so bad.
No,
come on.
no, come on.
Canada.
Wow.
Who's
Everybody
that
else
guy?
knew, obviously.
Whoever that is from the poor guy who's from the Dominion of New Zealand has to write in the goddamn margins on the
That
bottom
poor
of the
guy.
form.
He should have been
Oh,
given.
that's
He should have
so
got thank you letter
dumb.
invited. Was New Zealand even
Did
involved?
they laugh at this?
They were
or
very involved. They were
laughing
right in
to
the heart
this,
of-
or
I
what
know.
was happening in the
Okay.
room? What was the vibe in the room? Are they all in the room together? Are they laughing at that, or like what was?
No, nobody's laughing
was-
on that. I imagine they were on like a battleship or something, like super, like everybody's like fucking shoulders back, like, all right, this is it, boys. The last shot's been fired. Nobody
I feel like everyone's just like, why did Canada even have to sign it? Come on.
I would laugh at the Canadian.
Can you imagine? Like, I bet that Canadian fuck was sweating more than Taylor when it popped it. Like, oh no, and he's got to pass the form on to fucking Honduras or whoever the fuck signs after him. And he's just like,
I'm gonna skip out before the final dinner. You know.
I like to imagine they sat there trying to decide how they're gonna like fix this for like 20 minutes. That they literally it could have started a whole new fight.
yeah, like disagreeing about what should be done.
Like someone, we should just write it down and do it. Like, oh, why are you going to decide that? I believe you just lost the war. If anyone should decide, it's us. And it's like, this isn't what we were.
We
fighting.
invented writing. It wouldn't go well. It wouldn't go well. Yeah, that is a real fuck up.
Who are you thinking of, Taylor? Is it a real old one or a recent one?
It was a real old one, like before they could get away with that.
Oh, was it FDR?
I think FDR. Maybe you're right.
FDR was having a hard time there at the very end.
Yeah, Eleanor ran the country for a bit. That's what I'm thinking.
I have heard that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Or like,
and it worked out. Look.
Yeah, we got Social Security and all sorts of great stuff.
And we won World War II.
We got or no, that was 1913. The Fed, right? That was the real bad thing.
I would love it if it actually came to be that bombing the Japanese with
Was
the
Eleanor?
was Eleanor.
Well, he'd already died by then, so it was.
Oh shit! Yeah, never mind. I just
Truman.
Yeah, it was
the American.
Truman, I believe.
History. That's awesome.
Yeah, it was Truman.
Yeah. That was all Truman. FDR probably wouldn't have dropped the bomb. Although, like that's a fascinating piece of history that I find really interesting. Like we studied that pretty extensively in high school about whether or not, the ramifications of it, why it was done, and whether or not it was the right thing to do or not. I don't know. I don't know the answer to all those questions, but it was pretty fucking cool to see.
Yeah, America was kind of bad guys, right? Like, really?
In what regard?
So 9/11, they killed civilians, and we act like that was the most over-the-top civilian killing event that ever happened. Those guys didn't deserve that, which is true. I get it. We killed civilians too. We killed civilians indiscriminately in cities with nuclear bombs.
Yeah.
We had been killing civilians. Both sides had been killing civilians indiscriminately throughout the entire war with bombs. And the nuclear bombs were some of the least effective at doing that. The firebombing that we did in Hamburg and Germany was outrageous. The firebombings that we had, the reason they picked Hiroshima and Nagasaki, for one thing, it was because of wind conditions that day. But the main reason was there weren't a whole lot of cities left to bomb anymore because we had firebombed them all. We had these like weaponized meteorology teams who would like look at air currents and be like, next Thursday, there's 100% chance of a firebombing, boys, because this is going fucking low pressure zone over Hanoi. Like this is the time to fucking drop them.
Man,
and
it's dry.
It's so dry.
It's so dry and windy on Thursday.
Man, this is the worst day of my life. Some guy who like steps in a puddle and just, God damn it, looks up, just God approaching. Just,
But no, that was.
But what, Kyle? You're
that was
right.
just how
But
that
you're
war
also
was.
Like proving my point. Like
In the middle of a war, yeah. Like we didn't lead off with a city attack necessarily, and it was commonplace in the war. And also, like part of it was these were industrial cities. These were cities that that were creating the weapons of war, right? These were the ammunition creating cities, the airplane creating cities, the fuel depots, etc.
Yeah, I was just going to go there. That's what I thought it was, like some sort of production facility that they chose it not because it's like, hey, you know where there's a fuckload of civilians? Hiroshima. You know, it's like
they had.
I don't know.
So
it just seems
they
like,
had looked at what it would cost.
Bomb a city to take out an airplane manufacturing plant, right?
They didn't know what the nuclear bomb was going to do, so they dropped those bombs as demonstration to show the emperor what we had, because the goal was to make the emperor surrender. And they weren't quite getting it. Now, whether or not the emperor was about to surrender or not, they were sort of mid-negotiation. But it was almost like that guy who was quasi-resisting in his car. That's how the emperor was being during negotiations. He wasn't full-on saying, to the death, no matter what. But he also wasn't like hands up, 10 out of 10, like, yeah, I think we're heading toward peace. Like it was somewhere in the middle. So they were really trying to break his resolve, because the people were going to fight to the last man, and there were these, they had done these analyzations to like figure out what's it going to cost to invade the main island of Japan, like in men and resources, and the calculations ranged somewhere between like 250,000 U.S. deaths and 1 million. It was outrageous numbers.
I've heard this before, and it makes a lot of sense. I'm not even saying what we did was the worst case. I'm just saying if they decided, hey, you know what? The best way to get them to surrender is to bomb a city with a nuclear weapon, kill tons of civilians, and give them cancer and all that fun stuff, then you kind of give up your virginity with regards to how pure you think your tactics are.
I disagree. I don't think, for one thing, they didn't know a whole lot about what those nuclear weapons were going to do, especially as far
they
as
thought it was a taser, probably. So
well, they really, I mean, it was a brand
they yelled taser before they dropped it. I need to know.
That, it's a brand new piece of technology. We'd only detonated one of them before, and like even then, we had U.S. troops in like foxholes, like within radiation range. Like watching the thing go down. We didn't know exactly what was going to happen. There were scientists who were saying that we shouldn't do it at all because it could ignite the atmosphere of the planet, and the entire planet could be consumed in a fireball. They didn't know what a nuclear weapon was going to do.
One thing that has always fucked with me. It's like, okay, theoretically speaking, how the fuck did we not know that splitting one atom wouldn't split all the atoms around it and then just like basically nuke all of existence? It's like, you were real fucking confident that was
that chain reaction would stop.
Yeah,
it would settle.
Brand new. It was all theoretical. It was all theoretical until they just made it practical. But like, if bombing cities makes us lose some sort of moral high ground, then that had been lost long before the two nuclear weapons. Because
okay.
There was the bat bomb that I talked about, where they had like the capsules full of bats with thermite charges tied to their legs that they would release over Japan at nighttime, and then they would go roost as in the homes as the sun was coming up, as bats will do, and then the timed thermite charges would explode. Japanese civilians' homes are primarily made of bamboo, so like the whole city, the idea was like, we'll burn all the people's homes to the ground. It was, and you got to keep in mind the Japanese were at the very least equal in evilness to the Germans. Like if you look at like some of the programs they had with the vivisection and the human experiments,
it's like Sector 852 or some shit.
Section 81 or something. Yeah. Like it's horrific. Like don't get me wrong. Like we joke about the Holocaust a lot. I know the fucking Holocaust happened and it was horrific, but like, they did things that are worse than rounding up a bunch of people and gassing them to exterminate them. And I don't say that lightly. Like, rounding up a whole race of people and gassing them in gas chambers is incredibly
hard to
evil.
top.
It's hard to top. They managed it somehow. And if you don't believe me, you can just read the horrific stuff that they did. It's just as evil as when I talk about Warhammer 40K lore. This where someone sat down and just tried to make up the most horrific stuff you can do to a person. The Japanese were doing it in the 40s, like freezing people to death and like shattering their arms off and burning people alive and just injecting with all sorts of horrible, horrific chemicals, giving them every disease imaginable. They had created so much, maybe it was botulism or something like that. They had so much they had enough botulism to like kill the whole planet. Like, so much evil was going on. Not to mention what they did in Nanking when they invaded China. The event is referred to as the rape of Nanking. Like, that's where you see those still shots of Japanese soldiers with Chinese babies on bayonets being flung into fires alive, and women and children being buried alive by bulldozers.
Yeah, there. I mean, some of the details of the shit that they did there was like they were cutting people open, like using their organs as like a host to like basically use the human as a battery to keep bacteria alive that they could one day turn into like a bio weapon against the US or some shit. Like they did some fucking terrible shit. And I'm really glad I came on this podcast. This is a wonderful conversation.
Yeah. Anyway, look, I think that World War II is one of the very few examples of where you've got a good team and a bad team versus each other. And I think the only ambiguity to be found is in the Soviets. But as far as like why the U.S. was in that war, I think that you can really, I think that we were the good guys there. I don't think that has been the case since, for the most part. I think there's almost always been some sort of, yeah, but we also wanted this and that. And yeah, but it was a good idea to put our foot in the door of this and that and let them know that we won't put up with this on this parallel of the fucking planet. But there was one where you had evil people trying to conquer the world, like something out of a science fiction movie in Hitler, Mussolini, and Hirohito. And you had a bunch of people who were like in nations that were standing up to them for the betterment of mankind. And I think like if you're still like a little bit of this, a little bit of that, like imagine like how the planet would have, where we'd be right now if the Axis powers had won. You know, like I don't think you would have
cool
preferred that reality.
Shit. Flying cars.
Flying cars.
No, it's all good. They continued their work with, NASA and a bunch of other cool stuff. It's all good.
I'm not saying tech would have been the technology would have been just about the same.
You look at your Nvidia card and think it sucks if the Nazis had won.
I think that if you didn't look like the four of us, you'd have had a hard time on most of the planet.
But that's where the fun stuff happens, is when white people fight, because then maps get redrawn, technology goes forward 10 years.
I gotta take a piss.
It's just a matter of, the cost, all those lives,
Yeah, details, Taylor, details.
Yeah. Irrelevant. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'll have to keep looking on HBO for something better. Otherwise, I'll just end up rewatching the original Band of Brothers, which is a great thing to rewatch. It's tremendous.
I love Band of Brothers. I'm sorry, cut you off. I super loved it when it came out. But when I watch it now, I'm like, oh, you know what? It turns out that a lot of this isn't the part that I loved about it. Like, I want to say there are 8 episodes, and the last 2 are kind of not World War II anymore.
Yeah.
And the first 2 are kind of not World War II. They're like training, and we're getting to know the integrity of Captain Winters and stuff like that. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, when you get back to it, there's really just 2 or 3 great episodes, some of the greatest TV ever made in Band of Brothers, and a whole lot of other stuff.
I'm okay with the beginning. I do agree. The end, it really, at the end of any story can, at the end of the Lord of the Rings, it was like felt good to wrap up and give everybody their just, whatever they needed. But in this, it's like, come on, let's kill some more Nazis. Like just a few more. We can find some that won't surrender. That's what I want. I want them to be like, hey, winners, they say there's some Nazis up north that don't want to surrender. They say Hitler's still alive. Well,
right.
Gotta kill it.
I want to go get those.
The last
Nazis.
episode is about like, I don't
100%.
know, soldiers getting excited and having car accidents or something.
If Band of Brothers were made today, after its huge success, they'd be like, look, we need a season 2. How about they go to Brazil and look for Hitler? And
that would be awful.
They did a season 2, and it was Japan.
Captain Winters,
well,
the whole...
Like, honestly, with the Band of Brothers thing, I'm surprising you both like have that same take. Like, I disagree with Woody on the beginning part. I really like when they're like kind of
5 miles up, 5 miles down,
or Ross from Friends and Lieutenant Winters. Like, I really liked that development because it showed them like growing as a group. But you are right. Like the end of the series, it's almost like after they're in Hitler's hideout, the Eagle's Nest or whatever it's called. From there on, it's kind of like, okay, we're kind of meandering now. Whereas I think the end of the Pacific one is the one part that's better than the original, because the end of the Pacific one, the guy goes back and it's like really hammers home like how he's a totally different guy. Like he's changed. He's fucked up now. He will never be able to even engage with people who didn't experience that in a way that's real, because they can't possibly empathize with what he's been through. Like, and that was the Pacific series, which overall still solid.
I don't like
not
the
as
Pacific.
good.
I dislike the Pacific. I made it through it once, and every time I've tried afterwards, I always end up going, "Oh yeah, I don't like this. Oh, yeah, I don't really like this. This isn't fun at all. This is like about the horrors of war." I want to see like come on, give me a little bit of that John Wayne shit. Everybody now wants to be anti-war. Fuck you. No, give me that John Wayne shit. Give me the sad ending if you want, but I want to have some hoorah, blow up the bridge, and fucking Tom Hanks shooting at the tank, and then the fucking bombers come in. I want some happiness. I want some good times too. They
did make the Japs way scarier than the Nazis, as far as like the implication of like, you don't want to get captured by these Japanese. They'll saw your hands off and fucking inject shit in. Like they.
No, I think that's the case.
The stakes seem high.
I think that if the Germans took you captured, like whenever I'll say this, whenever I see a movie of a German prison camp and there's some Americans in it, they're like sassing the commandant and like wearing a leather jacket or something. Like, and the commandant is like, "I will only let you go so far, Makruger." And it's like, dude, the guy's got like doo-wop hair over there and a leather jacket on. How much farther are you gonna let it? It always seems like it's not so bad in the Nazi prison camps for the Americans. They're like shot down
for the soldiers.
The soldiers. But on the other hand, like I feel like the Japanese were just real awful pieces of shit. They're just scum.
Yeah,
and I was watching a great thing about the Japanese Zero today, and about how technologically advanced it was for its time. How the kill ratio was 12-1 in the Pacific.
Weren't they mostly just crashing it?
No. That's at the very end of the war. At the end of the war, when they didn't have any other way of, it was the last resort sort of thing. The Japanese Zero, really cool. The Zero outperformed everything it fought in the Pacific with a kill ratio of 12-1 in the early years.
No,
yes, the Air Force manual said to go to high altitude, to do a passing run on them, and then to go as fast and low as you could to escape, or you will die. Because they could not fight them at all. They would lose every dogfight at a ratio of 12-1. Yes, it was.
I had no idea we were getting wrecked.
It was so much better than anything the world had ever seen. The reports that came out of China, because the war for the Japanese began there, were that they were just shitting on them, and everybody in the West thought it was just exaggerations. They're like, yeah, the Chinese have biplanes, of course they're getting shit on. But no, when they started fighting, they were getting destroyed. It was only after they captured a Zero and they were able to understand like how it was made, and the things it was sacrificing to do all the things that I'm describing, to be so maneuverable, to have a 500-mile range. I think it was sacrificing a lot. It didn't have any armor. It was like a millimeter thick, the outside skin.
It was just too quick to hit for the guys.
It was too maneuverable, and it weighed like 2,000 pounds less than the American plane that was its counterpart, so it could just outmaneuver them at low speeds. So the doctor
12-1. That's a horrible ratio.
Yeah, that's not good. That's
for the first.
That's a real shit show.
We were losing that bad for years.
Yeah.
Damn, I never
in the air.
Huh. Well, yeah,
in the air and dog
that's
fights.
important on the Pacific.
I suppose so. It was mostly carrier battles, but they were sinking ships too with other kinds of aircraft. No, it was really interesting because I think Howard Hughes, the piece of shit that he was like, clearly it's a stolen design of the Howard Hughes Speedcraft that I designed, of course. And like finally they captured one, right? Like because the Japanese doctrine was if your plane is going down, it should go down as hard as possible. It should be destroyed. If you can, burn it. The thing that sparked the whole Japanese internment camp movement, the like case they used was where after Pearl Harbor, one of those planes crashed on one of the islands. The way news went in those days, the locals didn't immediately know that there was a World War II had begun about Pearl Harbor. But long story short, some Japanese natives on that island allowed that pilot to escape custody, burn his plane, and shoot a couple of the natives there, injuring them in the whole process. And so they used that Japanese couple as the scapegoat, if you will, for the whole Japanese internment camp thing. But yeah, they finally captured one, and they saw how that one, like a single hit would destroy it. Just a lucky hit would. And they also saw that, I guess it wasn't very maneuverable at high speeds because it didn't have any hydraulics. It was,
so what,
sacrificing that.
What did the Americans in their existing planes do? Because they couldn't just be like, all right, shoot more accurately. Like, did they have to immediately go back to the drawing board, design a new plane kind of like the Zero, and then put the Americans in there?
Well, they had to change their tactics right away. Like I said, they could fly at a high. The Japanese Zero could climb to 33,000 feet or so, 34,000, 10,000 meters, and it could do it extremely fast. The American tactic was to stay high and to do one run as you like dove through the Japanese and then flee because their top speed was faster. If they dogfight, they were just going to die. And later they had better planes. They
back in World War II, we were just not the power we are like we were later. Like,
we'll see.
Like we were getting owned by the German tanks in Europe at the same time, right?
So we had to like a potential fight with China, because I agree with what you're saying. Like we went in there and we didn't have the technology advantage. What we had was a manufacturing advantage.
Yeah.
And over time, we even had a technology advantage. I think Kyle was about to explain that as the new planes came in, the Spitfire, etc., we were better than the Zero. And that happened after 1942. Like, I think better Spitfires.
The Zero wasn't getting better every year. What the Zero was holy shit, you are 10 years ahead of your time when it matters. You have peaked on the tech tree in this one little area. Yeah. Right when you needed it, and they just shit on the whole world. But the Americans, they weren't just the Japanese had a system that could produce like 100 good pilots a month or something like that. They only had 550 total Zeros ever, I think, or at their highest number. But because they had that maybe 500-mile range, maybe it was 500 kilometers, really far, they were able to exert their influence on a much larger region with 550 planes than anyone could imagine. So they thought there were thousands of them because it seemed like there were, and they weren't losing a lot of them either.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so
it's really interesting. I'm impressed by your guys' World War II plane knowledge.
You gave me too much credit. I was reading the Wikipedia as Kyle was saying it. Everything he says is right.
When you said, I think it was after 1942, I was like, what? Like,
yeah. I had known that for seconds before I said it. But Kyle seemed to know it all. Anyway, if we were to get into a fight with China, would it be the same thing? Would we walk in there with better tanks, better carriers, better airplanes, and then they would have this manufacturing capability that allows them to do to us what we did during World War II?
I mean, they would push our, if it was a manufacturing battle, like they'd push our shit in. Like, it's not even close at this point. Like, so we'd have to have a really superior design.
I don't think any. I'm sure someone knows, but I don't think that I'm equipped to even begin to understand what that war would look like. I guess we're fighting over Taiwan, right? So,
if that's
what it is.
Like their backyard.
Oh yeah, we're fighting right there. When the Japanese are going to be there, New Zealand and Australia, the massive Pacific Fleet. Look, I'm always the guy like going "Oorah, American power," because God, we just outspend the rest of y'all 10-1 or some shit.
Yeah.
I just think
as long as that dollar is the trading currency of the world.
Look, I just think the U.S. is going to win every time because they outspend so much. I just think that when it comes down to it, like our shit'll just be a little better, and there will be more of it. And I don't know that the war is going to devolve to that 1950s thing where it's literally factories pumping out. We need more planes. If we need more planes, that suggests that we're losing planes. That we're losing them at a huge rate. That means we're losing pilots too, right? Like I don't know if
let's
either
say
country
both sides.
I don't think either country is set up to train new air forces full of pilots and get their 5th or 6th generation planes pumped out in a timely fashion. Planes don't work like that anymore.
Well, let me ask you, if there was a country between the US and China that could do that, would it be the US or would it be the country with all the manufacturing and with 5 times our population?
What kind of manufacturing are we talking about, Taylor? Are we talking about building shitty steel? Are we talking about building Chinese cars? Are we talking about building the cutting edge technology that you need to fly under advanced radar systems and deliver laser guided, radar guided bombs precisely and pinpointly to dissolve a country's entire infrastructure.
And to add on to what Kyle's saying, like, also, this is an environment where we're trying to invent new shit, not just copy what America did 5 years ago.
Yeah,
Like,
but I mean, the idea that the U.S. even has the option to like vaporize China's manufacturing districts, like they would do the same thing the Germans did and change and just constantly be switching fucking machineries and shit in all these normal ass manufacturing plants. Like they can't outproduce us in a way that we can't anymore. The U.S.
What are they
needs
producing
a bunch
though? That it goes back to what my question.
military
like,
equipment.
What kind?
Tanks, planes, any of that shit they can do faster than us. It may not be as good. I'm just saying they absolutely can. And the U.S. depends on China's exports a hell of a lot more than China depends on the U.S.'s imports, which means that the U.S. has a vested interest in not destroying the entire manufacturing economy of China.
Well, I think both sides have economic worries if they go to war with one another. I think it'd be a massive global event, far beyond like the military like might of it all. But I don't know what that war even looks like. I don't think anyone. I think we all. You see what's happening in Ukraine, right? Like nobody knew what that war would look like. It turns out it looks like 21st century World War I all over again. They're in fucking trenches in the snow out there.
I thought Ukraine was going to lose
maybe
in
there's
a day. Like they lost the Kiev
Lots of people did.
airport for a few hours, right? Do you remember that?
Yeah.
I thought it was over with that.
You know what? I bet that's a whole fucking movie. I bet the siege and then retaking of that airport is a whole fucking Die Hard-esque movie. Because what it sounds like happened is the Russians landed fucking paratroopers in their capital, captured their airport with what I can only imagine were the baddest James Bond
skeleton crew.
Sylvester Stallone cocksuckers Russia can muster with their night vision on and their fucking hex grid armors or whatever. Like landed at the airport, took that shit, and there were some Ukrainians somewhere that got a phone call and they said, "Hey, the fucking Spetsnaz just took our airport. The country could fall within hours. They're here for the president." And they said, "All right, we're on the fucking way." I want to know that guy's story. Like he hopped in the truck with his gun
say it with
and
an
went and
accent,
killed those
though.
people.
Yeah. Team 6. Like that would be cool.
The SEALs come out of the back. There's like Russian SEALs M6.
They're much here in the water.
maybe like giving them sardines. Hard as fuck. They got those metal teeth like dude had
like Jaws in
K9,
007.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm or no, I think most people agree with this. I put a lot more, I guess, respect on China than Russia as far as like capacity and shit. Like I feel like Russia isn't at all equivalent to China. Maybe I'm like being silly.
I think Russia's been a third-rate power for a long time. I think that's being exposed right now.
China's real deal. Have you seen the fucking shit they have their kids doing in school? They're all fit. They're bouncing basketballs and sink.
Taylor, no.
Michael Jackson dance.
Michael Jackson dance. They're thrilling all over the Chinese yards.
It's a problem.
We've said it before on the show, and it's like there's nothing wrong with owning historical artifacts, obviously. Like you have a Luger or some gun that a Nazi carried. That's pretty fucking cool. That's a piece of history, a literal piece of history. Like what you don't want is to be a guy who only collects Nazi stuff. Be a World War II guy. Be like, look at this
balance it out.
Look at this Japanese really weird look. They put a magazine on top. Isn't that crazy? And it's circular, you know? And then look at this Luger, this German piece of engineering. So cool. Instead of like, welcome to the Nazi room. Like,
I think Nazi stuff might be more I have historic British, American, Japanese, and Russian like guns.
You got to get a German one rounded out, man.
They must be expensive or something. There must be a reason that I don't have like.
I mean, they literally made better guns than everyone else in World War II, so it makes more sense to be more desired.
Oh, I don't like to believe that American guns weren't as good.
No, we got like I was.
We did beat them.
We did beat them, but it was by like sheer numbers. Like I was reading this really interesting thing. This was years and years ago. And a friend of mine who was in the military turned me on to it because he was talking about World War II tactics and stuff. And I was saying the same thing you were, Woody, where I was like, dude, we butt fucked him. We won. He's like,
yeah, 1911 was cool.
Look up the equivalent of the kill death ratio in World War II and look at what divisions are the best. And I was like, okay.
That's not fair. Russia was pub stomping. They were like,
no, it wasn't Russia. It was Germany.
Germany ran up their numbers by hanging out in Russia.
Damn it! I didn't think of that point.
Yeah.
When we were having
man.
You might be right. I don't know if they were counting like civilian deaths or what, but like it didn't make us look good. Like especially, I think his name is Rommel. Rommel, the guy who was in Northern Africa, who like everybody respected as a very brilliant, not journalist, fucking general, where he, I think Kyle's talked about this, where he like manufactured a charge towards a much superior numerically enemy in order to build big, huge clouds of dust behind him so that they would think a much larger force was storming towards them, and like they retreated. And that's something that was brought up. But
it's like a feint in boxing.
The Desert Fox was what he was called. It's super successful. I want to say D-Day would have gone down differently if Rommel hadn't been like either on vacation or injured. I don't remember which it was, but it was one or the other. Like he was either back home with his wife or something like that, and that's why. Like,
yeah, dude, if Rommel was there, we probably wouldn't have been in big trouble because like he and Patton are referred to as like the top military tactic generals at the time.
Yeah, I don't know about Patton.
Really,
as much.
I don't know about any of them. So
Patton had gotten into so much trouble with the War Department. Like, I want to say maybe it was part of D-Day, where they assigned Patton somewhere way off, somewhere else, as a diversionary tactic because the Germans believed him to be our greatest general, and they were like, "Well, they got Patton over here. There's no way they're going over there." And like maybe, and I know they had a lot of PR issues with Patton. Have you ever seen the movie Patton with George C. Scott?
Yeah, it's a good where it opens where he walks out on the stage with his like his crop or whatever,
his riding crop and those bloused pants.
Yeah, he looks really cool.
Come back.
That movie's like 4 hours long or something absurd.
Yeah, I'm actually looking it up. It's 172 minutes. 1969.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not as good as Lord of the Rings.
So he didn't believe in PTSD. He thought those men were cowards. He'd slap them around.
Well, back then it wasn't called PTSD. It was called shell shocked. Yep.
It's called being a pussy.
It's called being a pussy, and you're not standing up to what you need to do, soldier. It's like my nerves are frayed and destroyed, General. I need to go home, please. I'm gonna have lifelong problems with forming and trusting people because of what you've done.
They covered shell shock really well in Band of Brothers. Like you'd see people kind of like guys who they went from kind of rookies or maybe just good to great to like somehow over the hill courage wise, not with it anymore. Just a little.
Well, yeah, you
worn
saw
out.
that in I think it's the Bastogne episode of that show where the guy who was previously like a very strong, like, look to him, he'll lead us.
He's blonde, right?
Blonde guy, exactly. I don't recall his name, but you know exactly what I'm talking about. And like, but I remember seeing that episode for the first time, and part of me was like, wait, no, this is a strong character. No, this isn't how it's supposed to go. And then like it's kind of like no one is so strong that they're resilient to these things. Like
I felt like it led up to that. Like previous episodes showed him not as great as he had been.
That's true. Yeah, it does show him leading up and kind of getting jaded. Maybe jaded's not the right word, but I guess
Ted wasn't in the game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he had kind of become disenfranchised with whatever mission they had, and was more like, "This is hell. War is hell."
5 miles up, 5 miles down.
What a great fuck, Karahi! And the guy,
David Schwimmer,
the guy from Friends.
He killed that role.
He did so well. I was not to say that he played that because as I'm watching it, I'm like, I fucking hate you, David Schwimmer.
Yeah, and you're supposed to. They got me too. They hooked me into really disliking and not respecting him. And when Colonel Winters is like, hey, we salute the uniform, not the man, or something like that, or the rank, not the man. And it's like, he needed to be told that. The fuck, like he was being a baby, and like I don't know. The fact that I'm upset right now is a testament to how well he killed that role.
Yeah,
he did great. He did great. The same way that like you can. I mean, I was going to use Joffrey as an example, but frankly, Ramsay swept in and stole his thunder as far as like those kind of characters that are easily hateable in Game of Thrones.
Those Chiz just wrote that that movie will make you cry your ass off, and it reminded me of the movie I was going to say earlier that really makes me cry, like the moment in Saving Private Ryan when at the end the old Private Ryan is at Tom Hanks's grave, and he's like, "I hope I did enough. I tried. I hope I lived a good enough life.
I was worth it
to earn this. I hope I was worth it." Because at the end, Tom Hanks is like, "Earn this, earn this," and when he just breaks down on his knees and he's crying, and I'm like, God damn, I don't know if it was enough. I don't know if it was, but God
how
damn
can it be? Like 5 people died. How can one person be worth
more
5?
than 5? Like the whole unit, right? Like not to mention all the Nazis they killed to the whole thing. That's a really emotional moment when he gets on, he's on his knees as an old man. He's like, I hope it was enough. Oh man, I cry at the beginning of the movie when he first walks to that grave and falls to his knees with the flowers, and his family rushes to him and put their hands on his shoulder.
Dude,
super emotional.
When I saw that movie, Saving Private Ryan, and the opening scene, there's this is kind of like amphibious boat that drives just onto the shoreline, drops a door, and the soldiers all come running out. Well, the Germans were ready for them, and they mowed down, I'll make up a number, like 24 American soldiers right away. Right? They're like you're playing zombies. They're just all sort of there in a pack. All of them die, and I'd never seen that before, right? Previously, all my war movies, Americans, did curiously well, right? They made it against all odds through all these problems, and I was just like, it struck me as the more realistic thing. If you're taking a beach like that, I don't know how you're the first guy on the beach and survive. Like,
no, you don't. Like you if you're. Like that's something that they knew going into it is like, if you're on that first, unit transportation, aquatic vehicle, whatever the hell it is, and you're on one of those first lines and you're that dude with the rifle about to get out, like, that as soon as that door drops, some German dude has a fucking machine gun, not aimed maybe in your direction, absolutely aimed right at you. And the second he can, he's going to empty into that. Like, there were whole units of people who didn't even get onto the beach because they'd open the door and they'd get blasted and they'd either drown or they'd just be caught in a trap, basically. Where it was horrific.
Yeah.
It's almost like that first couple thousand guys are just there to make the guns get hot. To overheat German machine guns, to make them wear down their ammo, to blow holes in the defenses. Like it's a shitty way of looking at war, and that's not how we do it these days. But those first guys in those landers, like you had to know, like your odds are 1 in 25 of living, 1 in 35 of living, something crazy like that. If you're that first amphibious craft, doors locked down, and that MG-42 opens up, and it ain't just one. It's that all those concrete bunkers up there full of these crack soldiers who know that what they're fighting for isn't Nazism or Hitler. It's their very lives, because there's 250,000 Americans out there in those boats, and they're going to keep coming. It's not like if we kill the first 100, they're going to turn around. Like, they're just coming, and they're going to keep coming.
I asked my boss about it at the time. Now, my boss at this company, he had just left the Marines, and he was the kind of guy who would know. Like, he was an officer, and he had gone to the Naval Academy to learn in the Naval Postgraduate School. And I'm like, why didn't they just bomb it? Right? They bomb it, turn the whole damn beach gray, with just bombs. And he's like, they did. Yeah. They softened it up the best they could. Taking a beach is really hard.
Like
they were shooting with artillery fire and all kind, or the ship fire. But part of it, of course, is they didn't want to give themselves away, so they can't bombard it for weeks leading up to it, like we did with the Japanese islands. Like there was a lot of those Japanese islands where they just bombed that island for like a week leading up to the invasion, to like there's not a fucking palm tree standing and shit. And that's why we always hear about the Japs down in those tunnels and bunkers and stuff, because we would fucking bomb those islands down to nothing, and they'd have to be hiding under a mountain to survive the onslaught. But with Normandy Beach, there was a whole deception making them not know we're going to hit Normandy Beach among the others we hit. They even sent Patton off on some I don't remember where they sent Patton, but the Germans regarded Patton as like, oh, thank you, Chiz, to Africa.
North Africa.
They sent him off as a punishment for his silliness. He didn't believe in PTSD, and he thought when a soldier broke down and couldn't go anymore, he was a coward. And he had this habit of slapping privates in the face like a fucking bitch and like dogging them out and calling them cowards. And he got in a lot of trouble for that. He ran his mouth a lot, I guess.
I wonder how Patton would have done if he wasn't high ranking, right? Like, it's pretty easy to be brave here in my hotel room. It's me and the bugs. It's maybe not that hard to be brave way back at the command center when you're Patton.
Patton was actually known for being a general who, like, he would go up to the front lines and talk to people. Like, that's why he's still so popular with the entire military now, is because they knew him as a general who specifically didn't do exactly what you're saying, which is like, all right, forward. Like, I'm going to be back here in the command post, but
everybody
he would, like, go up.
Go.
Yeah. Everybody.
Have you ever seen the movie?
Hit it up.
Have you guys seen the movie with George C.
I've
Scott?
seen the movie with that great monologue in the beginning.
That's what I was about to say. We ought to just watch the goddamn monologue. Oh, that monologue is killer. He's like, all right. He's like, Americans love the taste of battle. They inherently love war. It's what we do. And he's just like going through this whole thing like America. America's never lost a war, and we never will. And this is pre-Vietnam, of course. He's just through this whole thing. He's just really pumping you up. It was Vietnam. It was a tie.
Vietnam was a tie. You can't even break it down because it's like if either side wanted to destroy the other side of Korea just in a war of wiping them out, they could have. You know, it's not like lack of power that kept one side from doing it. But, well, yes, Chiz, it was not a war. It was the great Vietnamese kerfuffle of the 60s. The great miscommunication, as it is now known.
Or the great lie, if you look at the Tonkin thing.
Was it political?
Yeah. The Gulf of Tonkin with their sneakiness. We talked about that recently, though.
Yeah, the whole false flag thing.
Do you remember the movie Fury very well? Taylor, have you seen it?
Yeah, I've seen it twice. I think I remember it pretty well.
I've seen it recently, and what got me to watch it is somebody was like, "Oh yeah, the rape scene in that was, like everyone kind of gave it a pass," and I'm like, "Rape scene? Like I don't quite remember that." So here's what happens. In the movie Fury, if you've never seen it, Brad Pitt is the star, and he runs a tank, and his tank and crew have been curiously successful through World War II. It's towards the end of the war. One of their guys died, so a new person comes in, and so does we, the audience, to join this tank crew. Anyway, the new person at first is a little gun shy about shooting Germans. He doesn't like killing people. He was supposed to be a typist, and suddenly he's in a tank crew. They win a battle and go into this town where they've taken it over, and there's Germans in this town. Well, it kind of like a quiet little, private spot away from the war, they find these two women, a mom and a daughter, who were civil, and they make them some tea and I think some eggs. And the daughter, originally they hid her, and I don't know. I guess it's smart to hide your daughters from American soldiers in World War II, or at least in this movie it is. And at one point, Brad Pitt goes, I don't know how he phrases it, but it's something to the effect of like, if you don't lay with her, I'm gonna. And Brad Pitt's a little like rough and tumble, and the audience, of course, wants this typist who's a better fit for this gentle, innocent girl. And
no, the audience wants to see Brad Pitt go back and give her the American experience, right?
America.
So then, they just to wrap it to the end, they fuck, and she seems to really enjoy it, and they're like shooting like cutesy loving gazes at each other. And there's two ways to interpret it. You could either say like, hey, we're having sex. You can choose to enjoy it or not, but we're having sex.
I read it differently.
That's rape.
I didn't see it that way. I didn't see it quite that way.
No, I was saying
the way I saw it was that he was paying for that sex with those eggs. That's why he counted them out. He's like, look how many eggs I have. Like he's like rolling those eggs out, this precious commodity. And I think he had some chocolate bars maybe too, or so. He's like laying out the goods on the table real slowly. He's buying the girl, and she's all too happy to sleep with Private Joe over there to get all them eggs and chocolate. The Russians were the ones who would come in and do the raping. I think that usually if we went in and did some raping, like our soldiers would get in trouble, they'd get fucking hanged and shit for raping.
Huh.
I took it as purchasing that young lady.
And it's funny because they mentioned in other parts, like I think shortly before that, a tank drove by a really pretty woman, and one of the other people in the tank, but we haven't mentioned him yet, goes, "She'll fuck you for a chocolate bar," and like, I'm just like, really?
I'm on the same page.
Like, dude,
I'm on the same page as Kyle.
1945
with how that scene went
40s
down.
would really do well in this environment.
Yeah.
Would stock up on the Hershey's.
You got that movie candy money.
When he just shows up in fucking 1943 with a ton of boxes of everlasting gobstoppers, just getting laid left and right. You know?
Walking with
This will last you until the next time I come around, babe.
Yeah.
Just
I saw the scene the same way as Kyle, where I kind of
You
the
saw
way
it as
he was taking out all the. I mean, the way that he was handing the shit out, and the way that they were sitting down to dinner, it clearly wasn't like just may as well share with these folk, like that kind of vibe. It definitely didn't feel like that.
The first time I watched it, I thought they just kind of fell in love. You know, this is an environment where we could all die any day. Relationships happen in fast forward, and in this case, about 5 minutes. You know, that's the way I saw it the first time. And then I read on the internet the way I just described it. Like, hey, sex is happening. You can enjoy it or not, but I'm getting laid here. And I was like, wow, like that was a rape scene in code. That's one way to view that scene. And I'd never thought of it that way before. So I don't know. Kyle might be right. Since Taylor saw it that way.
I like the war part. That was my least favorite part of the movie, because like when his friends come up, they basically have no, I don't even see it that way. I see them having a goddamn emotional breakdown. Everybody on that team is pushed to the limit. Like they're enraged and like crying over the loss of their friend at the same time, when they're like spitting on eggs and licking, and then everybody ends up crying at the end of that dinner. It's not that everybody's mad at each other and like, how dare you, like, you know, come up here and have this special time with this new guy. It's like, God, we lost whoever that guy was. They're all just falling apart over the death of that original guy still. It's a good fucking movie. Shia LaBeouf apparently made a real ass of himself throughout the whole like production. Like he refused to wash throughout the whole production. Those cuts on his face are real because he cut himself with a knife. So he'd have real cuts on his face. And apparently he just stunk really bad all the fucking time. Wouldn't wash or use soap or deodorant, and like wanted to be like a real tanker. And was just a real cunt about it. Nobody enjoyed working with him.
Now he's hiding flags around the country. You know, that's quite the career trajectory. Oh, even Stevens, we're crawling up. Oh, Fury, we're in a real war movie. Oh, he's hiding flags and mad at politicians.
Now look at the difference between what happened when like Jonah Hill worked with Brad Pitt once. Brad Pitt's like, oh my God, well, we need to make a career out of you. Like Jonah Hill has such a cool career now. Hasn't he been nominated for 2 Oscars now? He's like 30.
Oh, are you talking about Moneyball?
Yeah, well, he was in Moneyball first, and then he was in Wolf of Wall Street, and then he's in something. Now he's in a ton of movies. I really like Jonah Hill.
Jonah Hill's a pretty good actor, isn't he?
Yeah, he is. I think he's great. Yeah.
Every so often, I appreciate it. Most of the time, I don't notice actors, right? Like Brad Pitt in Fury, I thought he was fine, but I don't think Brad Pitt delivers the kind of performances that makes me say like, oh my God, this guy's got chops. But every so often a guy does. Bryan Cranston in Breaking Bad is the biggest example to me. I don't know what kind of range he has, but holy smokes, did he crush that role in Breaking Bad. Who's the guy that died recently? He was in a film with Tom Hanks about like Afghanistan and
Philip Seymour Hoffman.
Philip Seymour Hoffman. Man, he had acting chops. And I never really appreciated when he was alive. The Brokeback Mountain Joker, Keith
Ledger.
Heath Ledger, yeah.
Keith Haring. I don't know why I jumped in.
That guy had acting chops that I also didn't appreciate
Keith
him
Hedger.
until he was dead. Yeah, we all know Keith Hedger. That guy, Oscar nominated.
Winner.
Yeah, winner, chicken dinner. Anyway, yeah, every so often I see a guy with acting chops, and Shia LaBeouf, I thought he did a bang up job in Fury.
I think Shia LaBeouf is a very good actor. He just seems like a real like oddball kind of guy in real life. That kind of a kook. He's
I don't
but
mind
hey,
that.
I pay to watch him pretend like he's someone else. I don't.
Taylor
care
was
what he
Taylor
does.
was kind of, I thought, throwing stones like, oh, his career trajectory's going down. Now he's planting flags, whatever. I empathize with that. I'm like, dude, this guy, I'm sure he doesn't need money. Now he's doing whatever the fuck pet project he likes to do. Knock yourself out.
He's still doing movies and stuff. It's not like he's really just planting flags. I can't name it, but I know he just did something.
I remember I was in, I think it was 6th or 7th grade, and then they were like, "Hey, we're going to be watching. We're talking about the World War II atrocities and all that," and they're like, "We're going to watch Saving Private Ryan."
Oh.
And it's like at the end, when it started getting real, and like this dude gets a knife through his chest, but really slowly, that. Oh my God. I looked at that and I'm like, holy crap. like I'm freaking out. And, people getting blown up. Like, all right, well, that's cool. That was, it was crazy to me because in your mind, you kind of imagine what these things look like. But then like, if you see it, you put yourself in that situation and you're like, as a kid, it just gave me nightmares. Absolutely.
How old were you when they showed Saving Private Ryan?
Oh, I mean, God, when did that movie come out? So this would have been after the movie came out on VHS. So this would have been
was it
late 90s?
99?
Yeah, something like that. So maybe early to the. I mean, maybe I could have been, I don't know, 12 or 13 or something. Yeah. But it was pretty jarring. And I mean, like I also was fairly desensitized, from the early internet where all the gore stuff but it's just that, like it's in my mind, just seared in there, and it hit me in a way that I didn't anticipate, and it just like that was crazy.
That was a great scene, the one you're talking about. And then almost the best part of that scene is like the Nazi guys like walking down after killing him, and he doesn't even like. He's like, the effort it would take me physically, the calories I would burn killing you, the guy on the stairs, would be taking away from the war effort. Goodbye. just leaves. It's like, oh, you're not going to shoot me in the back. There's guns everywhere. There's bombs. Like, no, you're a bitch. See you later.
No, that's the like just
and also
emasculate him. Yeah.
Earlier, that was the guy who wanted to spare him back at the radio station.
Yeah, and he learned.
Yeah, he learned there at the end.
And he made a horrible mistake.
He's like, "Hi, it's me again."
I remember feeling like I got away with something when they would put on movies in school that were like really violent. I remember they put on The Patriot in like 7th grade or so, maybe 6th grade, and like we had to get something. It must have been 6th grade because we had to get something signed by our parents. Like, you're allowed to watch this, and it like said on there like, don't worry, this is a educational version. All of the red blood is black now. Like, how they did, how like in Lord of the Rings, in Lord of the Rings, the orcs and the Uruk-hai, they bleed black instead of red because apparently you can get like less of a hammer on you from violent ratings. I don't know. But like watching Mel Gibson chase down that red coat in the river, and by the end it looked like he was one of those like he had been like hogging in like one of those mud competitions because he was just covered in black and brown, and it's like that's he didn't splash that much. Like that's that red coat's blood all over.
So how did that work? Like, did they just take did they just manually get the red out? Like how would they do that back in the 90s?
I have no idea. I just know that any blood splurts, anything, they were either removed or they were like brown or black weird. Blood.
Yep. What's really shocking,
I didn't learn anything about the Revolutionary War from that. I didn't learn a goddamn thing. I learned that like it was a tragedy that Heath Ledger died, and like it was and that those stupid redcoats were easily fooled by posts with like dummies and cloths attached to them, like we have 10 of your officers. Like it was a great movie. It is a good movie, but I didn't learn anything.
A movie that I want to watch again, but I can't watch certain scenes, is Saving Private Ryan.
What?
That's a great one.
I roll that one back all the time. Every year.
When he's fighting with the German and he's waiting for the ammo and the German's pressing the knife down slowly, like that scene is hard to watch, bro.
A big misconception there is that a lot of people believe that is the same German who was spared previously at the radar station, and it's not.
Oh, it's not? Really?
It's not. That's a big misconception.
Oh.
Yeah. I always believed that until very recently. I watched a thing and it was like, many people, I even had the AI fucking voice, those goddamn short fucking AdSense whores. Many people believe that in 2001's Saving Private Ryan, the sewing soldier who was spared previously is the one who stabs Private blah, blah, blah. But actually, and then they break it down and they show the guy's face and yeah, they're both didn't have helmets on, but it's completely different characters. And the fact that he does execute the radar station guy later is just him like, coming full circle and realizing that, he needs to take care of that shit. No, not the same guy.
But he was brought back when the coward guy surrendered a whole bunch of people, wasn't he?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And then and he kills him.
Yeah.
Kills
Yes,
him.
because he remembered him.
Yeah, he remembered him. The guy that he was giving cigarettes to, and they were joking around about fucking Statue of Liberty, Yankee Doodle Dandy, or whatever.
Airman.
Yeah. And the other guy
it did seem like there were easier ways to get Private Ryan out of there.
He had come full circle on how he felt about the enemy, and if my thought process, the reason I would have killed him would be like, I'm about to take all these guys prisoner. The last thing I need is them thinking that I'm their friend. And this guy's about to be like, oh, this guy's okay. We can trust him.
Example.
He gave me like, motherfucker. All right, come on. The other 8 of them are definitely going to stand in line right after we pop that guy too. It would be hard to take a bunch of men prisoner. That'd be a scary thing to do.
Especially with the
high stakes babysitting.
And I mean, like, you got to get them somewhere. Like, if you've got like 15 men, and you're like hands fucking up, and they do. Now what? Fuck.
Like what they were using, and I can say the word clip because that particular firearm had a clip. But how many would they have in that? Like 9, 10 rounds? It's not like they had 30 back in the days.
In like the Garand, it's like 7 or 8, I think.
Yeah.
I think the clip has maybe 8, and so like one's going into the round, so you've got like 7 plus 1 at that point.
That's what I thought.
Off the top of my head, though, I've only shot a Garand once.
So it's not like he's going to have 30 rounds in the magazine to make sure he can keep all those guys prisoners secure, right? So it's even more stressful then, right? So
I googled it. Kyle was exactly right. If anyone cares,
those are big bullets.
I feel like if I was taking prisoners and I was like, all right, this way, and then like 2 of them ran off, I'd be like, God,
do you know the story of Sergeant
There's
York?
5 of you here. I can't chase those 2. Like,
have you heard of it's what's his name? Sergeant York. That guy. Zach. How many Germans did York take himself? How many prisoners did he capture personally? I think it's 40. I think it's 40 that he took on his own, amongst other achievements. When he came back to the U.S., he became a movie star. He starred in movies about himself.
Is this all confirmed, or is this were they goosing the numbers to make a movie star?
It's all confirmed. He showed up.
Yeah,
with
is this Frank Abagnale? 40 guys, nah?
He lined them up,
Frank
and they counted them.
actual con was making you think he was a con man.
Stop tearing that man
the
down.
World War II.
He captured
World War II.
Yeah, World War II. He's talking about, I believe, right?
I'm not 100% on that. I just remember. Yeah, it probably would have been because he came back and was in movies. Yeah.
Or was it like Korea or Nam?
I thought he was fighting the Germans. I remember a story about him getting on a tank and doing some heroic shit. But he was also like a really short guy. That was his thing. I think he was really short. Anyway, he was
132 Germans?
That's too many. They should have said like 25.
That must have been close to the end of the war where they didn't feel like fighting.
Nobody felt much like fighting when Sergeant York showed up.
Yeah, he showed up in May of 46.
Like some fucking senator was up there trying to not let me fight that.
Japanese part of the war is over.
They all surrendered in 55.
They're just moms at a shopping mall.
What are you doing?
It's like 4 grade 6 classes. Jesus, that's hilarious.
You know what? But like veterans, I feel bad for are I guess they're mostly dying, but like Korea, they don't get any attention. They're totally. I mean, everyone's overshadowed by World War II.
They got
then
mashed.
Vietnam overshadows it. It's overshadowed from both sides somehow. Like no one ever talks about Korea.
Well, Korea was a boring war. and it was a big failure on our parts, if you ask me. But they got their own TV show, right? They got MASH. That makes up for.
Is that what MASH is about?
Yeah, but Vietnam got like tons of.
No.
I wouldn't say credit, but Vietnam got movies upon TV shows.
Cultural event. Were Vietnam vets treated poorly? That's what I wonder, right? Because it changed American culture. This idea that like soldiers were responsible for the things they did is gone now. Gone now. Absolutely. Hey, fog of war, your leader ordered you to do that, whatever. Every soldier is an absolute fucking hero. Never met a bad one that didn't walk on water and fucking have shiny shoes and walk grandmas across the street.
You better watch
everyone who's ever served in the U.S. Army or Navy or military or fucking Coast Guard, I don't give a fuck, are the best people. They're our finest. They're our greatest, etc. All because Vietnam vets were treated poorly when they came back. How long did that last? Was it like 18 months of, people not liking veterans, some people not liking veterans, and now we just like bend over backwards and thank them for when they're on the plane? Like it. How long did the
you got to find a middle ground sometimes, Woody?
How long did the soldier get like bad mouth? No, welcome to the show. Well, how long did soldiers get bad mouth?
Remember,
to really set the culture.
Remember Tom Cruise, Born on the 4th of July?
Yeah.
Like that was like a kind of anti-war, anti-soldier type of movie too. I mean, I don't know. How long did the whole burning hooches with civilians thing go on in media, mainstream media back then, right? So
is there another meaning of hooch that I'm not familiar with? But burning hooches, what's a hooch?
It's where the Vietnamese used to live in the little huts.
It's not just female genitals.
No. I mean, you could catch that when you're on.
Dude, I was literally like picturing like a still in like the 30s. I'm like, we're talking about like destroying an hooch at a still in Kentucky now.
I gotta remember.
No, I'm not. No.
I think your question is like, how long were the Vietnam veterans specifically sort of like maybe not spat on the street still, but like thought of poorly? Like how long was it before they felt comfortable how long did they start? How long after the war was it when they put on the hat to get congratulations, not to like make a fucking point?
The genesis
I did it.
This. You wake up as Hitler in the middle of World War II. What do you do?
My kind of question.
May I go first?
Go on.
I immediately get Churchill on the phone and I ask him if he can coordinate a call with Roosevelt, because it's the middle. And I tell them, here's what I'm going to do. I'm pulling back out of France. I'm pulling back out of most of the countries I'm taking. I'm keeping fucking Poland because, come on, they're right next door. I want this shit. And I'm keeping everything. I don't have a globe in front of me, but I would pick a line. What's the word I'm looking for? The lines around the earth.
Latitude.
Yeah, I would pick a point there, and I'd be like, everything north of this, I'm gonna keep. I will surrender back to the Allied forces. Everything south. Here's what I want, though. I want to destroy Stalin. Stalin's sneaky. If I pull back, he's gonna turn on me. Join with me. I'll stop. I would end this whole, the whole. We'll leave the Jews alone. We're gonna keep messing. The gypsies have got to go. Obviously, I think everybody's gonna be on board with that. But we're gonna get rid of these concentration camps. No more of that. Restore all the Jewish people's rights. And join with me. We take out Russia. You let me keep those territories, and I'll join with you, and we'll take out Japan. Then I get to be emperor of like Eurasia, and often most of Europe.
Okay, I like that.
I want to split China with them, though. Might as well take China too, and Mexico.
You might be biting off more than you can chew. This is kind of the mistake they made in the first place. What if you went the other way? What if you said, "Hey, Russia, I want to be friends with you," and you and I, we all hate gypsies. We got that in common.
That's true.
Let's take down England. Let's keep messing with the U.S. until they give up, and you and I will be buddies. And then once Russia starts attacking the U.S. from the west, and that becomes like a big issue, right? Because we share that coast over there, and they're freshly weakened. Then we fuck with Russia, and I rule the world.
This is like a Civ 5 game I'm playing out in everybody's head. Like, okay, so
we need to play that. Is that
Mm-hmm.
out yet? The new Civ?
Civ 5? Yeah, it's out.
There's a new one.
It's a new one.
Yeah.
Oh, like an expansion or
No, a
like
new one,
brand
like
new?
A
it's
new
a
one.
brand new one.
I think it takes place mostly in space. I don't know much about it.
Yeah, which I'm not sure. I liked the idea of, being on Earth with familiar civilizations. I just don't know if it's going to lend itself as well to space. It just doesn't seem like the same game. But what do I know? I'll play anything though. Pick up the old PC.
We'll see. So I think I have to befriend Russia so that, because I think the Russians caused a huge problem. We need to befriend Russia until they're weakened by the Americans and then attack Russia.
The Russians, we could have beaten Russia, or I'm speaking as Hitler right now. But
Yeah, I'm with you.
They didn't pack any winter clothes. They let the war drag out. But Stalin was pretty much prepared to surrender everything west of Moscow and southwest.
Are you sure?
Yeah. It was almost over when things turned, when the tide turned. If they had lost Stalingrad, if we had won Stalingrad, that was it.
But how much better would it have been? The Americans would have beaten the Russians, and then we just have to take on America after having lost all the resources
America's hard to take on. America really is. Like I know I'm an American, so but just speaking as someone with a little bit of historical knowledge, and especially that America, World War II America was not something to be fucked with at all. It was so industrialized. It was so focused on one goal, so patriotic. Guys were signing up to go die for their country to fight the Japanese and the Germans.
Americans love a good war, don't they? God. All of a sudden, whoever's president at the time, George Bush had a 98% approval rating when he invaded Iraq, right? We didn't even have a reason. We didn't have any proof. We didn't have anything. We're like, oh, yeah, go
Shock and
war.
awe. Woo!
I love my team. Let's win a war. That every time America goes to war,
Let's not talk about a bad war, though. Let's talk about the good war. Let's talk about World War II. Totally justified, 100% good. You're gonna have there's some bad flavors to it. Obviously, the internment of Japanese citizens.
Oh yeah, that's not talked about a lot.
That's a real snafu. Mistreatment of real Germans. German was one of the minority languages spoken in the U.S. Prior to World War I, when it completely fell out of favor. But I just don't think an invasion of the United States in World War II would have worked for anybody.
I don't know that you have to invade the U.S. as much as you need to beat Russia and then make the U.S. stop attacking you.
How do you do that? You have to do it with long-range bombers, but we're so far away.
Once you take Russia,
not once you take Russia.
Yeah, you got Eastern Russia.
What are you gonna hit Alaska? Good luck, you'll run out of fuel by the time you find a fucking hut, especially in those days.
Even California is not that tough.
Yeah, but I can sail my fleet out of Eastern Russian ports, though.
Exactly. Sail your fleet out of Eastern Russian ports and attack Western U.S. ports. That L.A. port.
Pearl Harbor Part 2.
Exactly. That's what you do.
The Reckoning, Electric Boogaloo.
I just think it was too far. I think it's a longer distance than you're aware of for World War II technology. They'd have to bring their fleet there, and I don't know that the Russians had. I don't really hear much about the Russian naval fleet in World War II.
That's a good point, actually.
And I think they're coming from the wrong direction. I think their ports are more in the Atlantic.
We've got the jet stream at our backs.
The United States was, especially then, was pretty much invulnerable. They never. The only thing, there were some Japanese that landed on the Aleutian Islands and held out for a while, but other than that, no, I don't. It's been a long time since.
I think there was some attacks on Alaska too. I'm not
well, they
sure.
invaded it was the Aleutian Islands. I don't know about the mainland of the big island, or it's not a fucking island, but the mainland of Alaska. I think it was just the islands.
Joe, you're Hitler in World War II. What are you gonna do?
Kill myself immediately.
Don't be a puss about it.
Yeah, but then Hitler takes over, and he's like, we're really stepping up those Jew experiments now, boys. Hitler's not around to leash me down. Now we're getting dirty. I think you should. You don't think you should maybe turn the tide?
I don't know. I mean, he was pretty screwed at that point. I mean, once you're halfway in, there's really no way to overcome things. You bit off way more than you could chew. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's time to get some more allies. The Italians, they're just not going to be killing enough people for you.
The Italians were their allies. Mussolini, they failed.
I know. The Italian as a military has always had, a big appetite and terrible teeth. They just can't do shit.
Gonna give Red Skull full authority and let him make all the tough decisions.
I think Hitler was really poised to be a great world leader if he hadn't just been the most evil person ever born. He had all the power, and he had all the technology. Like all the tech we used to go to the moon, we stole from him. So did the Russians. They totally wouldn't have gotten that, had the first satellite if they hadn't, robbed all that technology from Germany. Same with us. We were pardoning those war criminals because they were good at building rockets.
Mm-hmm.
That's another little dark chapter of World War II. A lot of people argue about whether we should have bombed Japan or not. I think we totally should have, and we did the right thing. Although we still didn't get an unconditional surrender, which is bullshit. I think we should have kept bombing them.
What do you mean we didn't get an unconditional surrender?
We didn't get the emperor. The emperor stayed. The guy who started the war, the guy who made the decisions, their version of Hitler, their version of Mussolini.
We don't do that anymore. Now if you go to war with the U.S., the first thing we do is chop your head off. Step one, new leader.
Yeah, we want the main guy, right? The people want the main guy, but we didn't get it in World War II. Not from the Japanese, who started the whole thing.
Yeah, man. If I'm like Guatemala or something, I'm thinking about saber rattling against the U.S., I have to know going into it, fuck. The first thing they do is kill me. That's how they do this stuff all the time now. Modern American war, we kill your president right off the start.
Here's what you do if you're Hitler, though. Because you're right, Kyle. You stop the whole, Jews are bad thing and, the death camps, all that stuff. Labor camps, fine. Death camps, no. That's just bad PR. You don't need that. You're already fighting a war. You don't need ultra bad PR. And also, you're forcing a lot of your best scientists to flee. And so if you reverse on that policy, you could probably recruit a few of them for your atomic project, or at least your jet project, and get that rolling. You pull Rommel out of northern Africa, give your troops the supplies in their eastern push towards Russia, and bam, you got Moscow, and you win that front. And you say, all right, allies, you can do whatever you want with Italy. I want the oil fields. I want everything east of Baku. I want the oil fields in Baku to continue my industrial push and all in my war machine. You can have everything else back. I just want Baku, and that'll fuel me for the next 50 or so years, and I can go do whatever I want and take over Russia. Leave me alone. You get all of Western Europe back.
And he had a lot of bargaining power. If I'm Hitler, you could say something like, I'll tell you what I'll do. Obviously, let's not go public with this whole thing yet, with me turning on Japan. Here's their codex. Here's their naval codes. Here's where all of their tech is. Here's where to hit them. Here's where their tech. You could kind of be a national spy and just give them the goods and let them use it for a month before you started sending German battleships to Japan or something like that. I like that idea. That'd be a cool scenario. That's why didn't Quantum Leap ever do that? Come on, Scott Bakula, what the fuck? You're always going and fixing some insurance salesman's marriage. Go fix fucking World War II, asshole. Greedy son of a bitch.
Strong point.
Yeah, there you go.
So now we're going to give everybody legroom and heated nuts, and we'll be set.
Could they? You could hide a ceramic knife.
This plane was brought down by a crying infant. No more crying infants on planes.
I'm just saying, like, the policy is so fucked up anyway. But don't y'all guys agree a ceramic knife could be snuck on a plane and they couldn't detect it?
No, I don't know, Wings. Like, are you sure that the new detectors, that those things don't catch all hard objects?
I'm
Another reason we should go with Viagra. Sorry, I just had to. No, Wings, to your point, I saw a guy I don't know if they've changed this, but he did a test where the way that stuff works is it used the contrast of your flesh to highlight non-flesh objects, like screws in a knee or objects in a pocket, or even stuff. That's how it sees, like, kind of inside you. Is that I don't know specifically how it works, but basically your flesh acts as a contrast for non-human biological objects. But what it doesn't do is look for non-biological objects outside of the contrast of your flesh. So if you, say, wore a baggy shirt with a pocket sewn on the inside of it, such that when you raised your arms into the position for the test, the pocket was outside of you, and thus anything metal you put in there was outside of the contrast of your body, they wouldn't detect it. And he took a metal drinking flask and put it in a pocket he sewed on the side of a loose shirt and went through TSA multiple times.
Hold on. Kyle, this is the knife you carry on planes?
Yeah.
This is a fucking killing machine that's illegal in New Jersey.
I know, right? I don't fly to New Jersey.
I'm sort of thinking, like, why not take like goat flesh or something and wrap the blade in if it just does that?
Well, because it can see through. It doesn't,
I'm saying on a ceramic knife. I mean, like just
This thing has no so it's a handle that you hold in your fist, and then you thrust it into people, right?
Yeah.
5 inches in overall length,
or as I call it, a letter opener.
Dude, that's hardcore. Like, what is that meant for other than fucking people up?
Letter opener. That's literally what it says in fine print.
It says it says an ABS plastic pusher.
But mine is slightly different.
It doesn't say letter opener anywhere on this thing.
That's the slight difference on mine then, I guess. Mine's slightly different, but it's plastic and it's very sharp plastic. It really is. It's a different kind of plastic. It's hardened. It's sharp shit. And I know that if you stab somebody with that, it'd work. But it's stuck on my backpack, and I carry it wherever I go.
You're like, sir, what's this all about? I get a lot of mail. Don't worry about it.
Wow. And they sell tomahawks too? Zombie hunting spring assisted knives. I like this store.
Shit.
I think we've thoroughly dug that the TSA is not needed.
You'll see in the comments there could be people, dude. So what? You're sacrificing your rights. It's for safety. It's like, well, no, the rights are, the liberties are paramount to the safety, to the lives, to any lives. That's the whole point of the idea. The idea. Yes, you are not more important than the Fourth Amendment. I'm sorry.
That is 100% correct.
I'm not more important than the Fourth Amendment.
I'm kind of a big deal.
I won't say this. They sent old Elvis Presley and Joe DiMaggio out to war. They'll send your ass too.
Did they send Elvis Presley?
Yeah, he had it good though.
They're not going to send me to war. I'm old as fuck.
You were sick, but Kyle's fucked. Kyle left his fuck.
I'd go. I think it'd be fun.
I'm going to Canada. Or, oh, wait. I want to go back to school for something. I'm going to go study.
Looking at World War II documentaries, I feel like I'd rather be in the war than what they had to do back home. Like, they had to work like 17-hour days welding and shit. Like,
I don't think they had to. I think they wanted to.
It's either that or you get shot in the face by angry
Germans. A lot of people went and didn't get shot in the face, Lefty.
A lot of people also went and got shot in the face.
I'm fat. I'm willing to roll
a lot of people were just standing on the beach in Normandy, and then boop, lights out.
Well, first off, the Pacific had a lot worse landings than the one in Normandy. That's just one that's really theatricized a lot.
Right? Okay. That makes my point, not yours.
But the fact is, Marines had a lot worse than the Army did.
Yeah. Okay.
But.
Yeah, I know. Wings is like, let me tell you, Lefty.
I mean, first wave is the one they put the idiots on. Like, if you score really, really, really bad, you get to go in that first wave.
Are you? I think you just made that up.
I'm not making it up.
You telling me they looked at their test scores and assigned them to their places in the boat based on them?
No. You get assigned based on how useful you are, based if you're the front wave or you're the secondary. Just like the old Romans used to do with the Vitruvian Guard. The good fighters stayed back because they would tire them out on the inexperienced fighters or the people that didn't have all the skills. And by the time they got through with them, they had to fight somebody with superior skills, and they would win.
Oh, so they banked all their XP, huh?
Kind of. It's the Roman tactic. I mean, and if you don't remember, Patton was a really, really keen on following Roman rules.
Like, I can't prove that you're wrong. I just suspect it.
You can suspect it all you want. It's in the Patton movie.
I don't know. I'm not up on military tactics.
That's not what they do in Star Trek.
Yeah, Star Trek.
You can laugh all you want. I just saw the movie. They send the captain on every away mission.
Yeah, that's not smart.
I don't care what anybody
You don't want
says.
to cut the head off
Nothing will
the chain
ever
of
be better
command.
than
You know,
Star
people
Trek
kind of lose faith then.
It was in a movie. Just saying.
But I'm just saying, the Patton based his whole military standard around the Petruvian Guard in Rome, and that's how they did it. They would send the inexperienced soldiers first, and if those people could not hold the waves back, then they had to deal with the fighters, the teachers, the really experienced military guys that would just slaughter any normal human soldier in a 1v1 competition.
I get the logic. I get the logic behind it. I don't know it to.
And my brother, when he went into the military, where you got placed, if you were the grunts are the people that score the lowest. If you go in there, you don't have really good education, you struggle to speak English, you have no really, apparent skill set, you get to be a grunt. You get to walk.
Was that what he did?
He was a combat medic.
Is that not a grunt?
That's not a grunt.
All right. Sorry. I kind of thought it wasn't, but the only thing that's really burned in about your brother is he has a crooked penis.
Grunts are the people that score the lowest on the test that you take. It's called the ASVAB. What's it called, Kyle? You know?
I don't know.
How crooked is it?
Come on.
Like,
Wait, why do you know his brother has a crooked penis?
It's his nickname, Crook.
But the fact is, the lower you score, the more you're going to become a grunt if you score really low. And that's where they're going to put you. You're going to serve you 4 years. You're going to do the missions. You're going to walk. You're going to ride in the Humvees. You're going to be in the bombs. But if you score really high, you get to be a communications officer. You never get to see fighting.
That's true.
Kind of. Is it just the tip? Like.
Or is it bent more towards the base like that?
I've never seen it. You got to ask him that.
Oh, yeah, that GIF was rough, man.
Oh.
But does my logic convince you a little bit more, Woody? Or no? No.
I was kind of preoccupied with thoughts of your brother's penis, to be honest with you.
No, but wait, I see the logic of what you're saying. Yeah, I don't know it to be true. It's logical, sure.
Yeah, like I see a certain kind of logic behind it. I'm trying to Google it, and I can't find any reports on it.
Well, either way.
If it was on the internet, for sure, we'd know it was true.
Look for documentaries. That's all I can say. Well, watch the Patton movie. He talks about it in the Patton movie.
Yeah, they talk about a lot of stuff in movies, though. Like the Force. A lot of movies about the Force.
You say 9?
Probably more movies about the Force. Right, there's more movies about the Force than
Wait,
there are about General Patton.
there's
strategy.
6 movies about the Force, right?
About 3 more of them.
Yeah, there will be 9 total.
Oh, is that? I misunderstood.
Disney is making the next 3.
So, I mean, if we're going by validity based on how many times it appears in motion pictures,
But Force is legit.
the Force is legit. Fuck Patton.
Well, it actually appears. It's going to appear in 10 movies because it appears in Mallrats too.